see what happens. So hopefully, to say excellent connection.
Sounds good.
And then I will just grab the link, if so, to post to my Discord, but that should be working.
Perfect. Could you share the link with myself as well? Just
Yeah.
so I'll post it on my own page.
Looks like it's live, but it's also got the thumbnail from before, which is a bit not the best. But oh well. It's basically my channel banner, which maybe actually, because I think I've changed it since then, so maybe it's just taken that by default. But yeah, it looks like it's working. It says 17 people currently watching, so if anyone is here, do let me know in the chat. Yeah, it says people in the chat already. Got 3 people said hello.
Hey there. Yes, no, I think I see it live as well. Just for context for everyone, we are both terrible at any tech apparently, so we've been fumbling around with all of this for half the afternoon by this point.
Okay, there we are. Yeah, I think I made a... Cool, we're good. I think we're all good. The collab of the decade is finally here. Yeah, so if you are in the chat, do let us know if everything is working all right. I know Suzels' camera probably disappeared for a couple of minutes there, but I think it's sorted out now. If I go back to live, yeah, I think we're all good. Everything is great. Myself. If you don't have Igaguri at over 100 million, I can't trust either of you. True. But yeah, I think it's all working. So yeah, as put down there, neither of us have looked at the leaks for 295. But yeah, we'll just be discussing everything up to 294. And we will... Yeah, so obviously do expect spoilers if you're not up to date on the manga. But otherwise, I think we're good to go.
Brilliant. Yeah. No, thanks again for having me.
No worries.
We've... Just again, for chat's context, like the two of us, we do chat regularly, just kind of exchange thoughts about the manga, about YouTube and everything. So it's kind of funny in a way that we haven't actually talked.
Yeah, I think we were going to do one about a year ago, but I think I was more focused on like Haikyuu at the time. And personally, I know some YouTubers can make like videos on like 6 different series at once, but I find like I can only be focused on one at a time. Like, even recently, I've kind of stopped reading a couple series just to like focus more on Blue Lock. I just can't seem to do more than one series at a time. So, but yeah, obviously focusing more on Blue Lock again. We don't really have any sort of plan for what we're going to talk about. But yeah, obviously the big thing is like we are presumably getting our rankings next chapter. At the very least, the NEL is basically over apart from Manshine versus Barca. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but personally with this Manshine Barca game, like, I suppose that's a good point as I need to start with. I guess it's got to be a Manshine win, surely. Like, I feel like there's never really been anything going on at Barca. And it seemed so, I mean, what were you going to say there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I also suspect that Manshine is going to win. I do think that Nagi's arc will end up with him rediscovering his fire and everything.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, it's funny because I've reread Barca or parts of Barca a lot recently just for various different projects. And Barca, in retrospect, the match, so against Bastard München, is really, really cool. There's a part of me where I want to be putting out a video at some point in defense of Lavinio, basically, because Lavinio gets a lot of...
I think I gave him some flack as well.
No,
But
it's
yeah.
so cool to see kind of how all these ideas about originality, which is at the forefront of the PXG
Mm,
match, they really start with Barca.
true.
So
Yeah.
it's almost like the fact they have to be narratively, every opponent that Isagi that BM faces in the NEL has to be, slightly ahead of them in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form to be an interesting conflict, right?
Yeah.
Because BM has to improve. And it's in that sense a shame for Barca that they came in so early because they have to also then they're limited to being an opponent that BM can still face while having an interesting philosophy, while having something right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because obviously, yeah, at the time it kind of felt like it was just setting up the NEL. Like it was just like, yeah, here's a team. We've put Bachelor on it just because you already know and love Bachelor. But yeah, I suppose in hindsight, there probably is quite a bit more in that match. The thing I thought was really interesting when I was rereading it for the Kaiser game is
Mhm.
that they actually kind of hype up some of the other BM players quite a bit. Grim is
Yeah.
mentioned to be like really good at dribbling, really good at passing, really good at ball control. And someone else as well is like, oh, he's amazing. He's so good. And obviously that is the first and last time we ever hear about any of them. Like I I completely forgot that panel was even there. Until like rereading that match. But yeah, and I suppose there probably is quite a bit to reread on that. And it'll be
Yeah.
interesting if we do hopefully get to see a bit of Barker. I mean, I don't know. It kind of feels to me like we're just, with the pattern we've seen with the previous games, we're just going to see the last goal, and that'll be it.
Mm.
I would really like to see a bit more because obviously, like, Nagi's downfall has been set up so much throughout this.
Yeah.
So it would be kind of crazy to just put one chapter on that, or like half a chapter really, and then move on.
I know. Yeah.
So
I am hoping for a full chapter. Again, people in the chat may know more than we do at this point
yeah,
already. But yeah, like it's interesting to me, and I don't quite know why specifically Nagi yet, but yeah, he has been set up as this kind of background story arc
yeah.
to everything else. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts, like why specifically
I
Nagi and
think
Rayo to complement.
there was something in episode Nagi that kind of made it click a bit for me. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I think Nagi's ego has always been a bit kind of like shaky. Like he's never really
Mhm.
kind of understood why he's playing. He kind of gets this occasional burst of like, oh, I want to be Isugi or I just want to escape a bit of boredom.
Yeah.
But he's kind of, for the most part, always just gone along with like Rio's whole, yeah, let's become the best in the world together.
Mhm.
And it doesn't seem like it excites him that much. Like he sometimes kind of thinks about it before he like starts to get a bit more into it. But it's not really his vision as such. It doesn't seem to like really, really excite him.
No, it doesn't.
Like it's, yeah, I think he will need to find a very different reason for playing. And currently I have no idea what that would be.
No, I don't either.
Like he seems to, he has kind of an obsession with like, well, not an obsession, like an interest in like finding out if he's a prodigy. But that's kind of it. He doesn't really, yeah,
Yeah.
because he never even really liked the sport that much. Um, so I don't know. I don't know what it would look like for him. Um, Rio
No,
Nag, yeah,
exactly. What's kind of interesting about him is what's really gets him motivated. And actually, I kind of recognize a bit of myself in that in when I'm playing a lot of games, video
hmm,
games or board games, I am actually not that much of a long-term planner. I don't like sitting, you know, with a manual and finding the best builds or anything. I'm not like same with trading card games. I
Yeah.
play a bit of Magic the Gathering,
Oh, really? No,
casually.
I do the
I'm not.
same.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
But I'm not that much of a deck builder. I'm very
Hmm.
happy to just buy a precon, swap out a few cards,
Yeah.
and then just run it. Because for me, the creative part is the on the fly improv.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Nagi is that very much as
It's
well,
kind of the
where,
same, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, he gets these sudden bursts of creative dopamine in the situation, right? Where you suddenly like, I now have a very concrete goal,
Mm.
being beaten Isagi or whoever, and that gets him excited. And all this big picture stuff, the becoming the best in the world, the getting a certain
Yeah.
salary, it doesn't work for him.
Yeah, because I don't think he even cared that much when he got his offer, from what I remember. And he was just
No.
a bit like, "Oh, cool." Even though it's I mean, what was it, like 82 million? What's that in pounds? 82 million yen in pounds
It's a lot.
is
Like, it's
half
more
a
than I'm earning.
million, like
Yeah, yeah.
428,000 pounds. So that's yeah, which kind of correct. I mean, now that obviously some of the players are reaching like 200,000, it's kind of like over a
Mhm.
million a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see, because obviously, like, maybe it doesn't actually happen this arc, because obviously we all kind of expected something to happen with Kunigami, and that was honestly built up a lot more
Yeah.
than Nagi, and obviously, like, just didn't really go anywhere in the end. And I suppose maybe for a similar reason, like, it kind of seems like Jinpachi is forcing him to adopt this mindset that he doesn't actually care about. Where he's like, "I'll become a blank slate,"
Mhm.
and so it's likely that's why he's not performing very well. Because obviously, in Blue Lock, like, it's kind of a sense of like, having the right mindset and the right reason, right reason to play adds sort of like 5-10 years worth of training onto your abilities. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, no, I'm very interested to see what's going to happen with Nagi. It would be wild if nothing happens and he still just kind of sinks down.
Mhm.
Personally, for me, I'm kind of more expecting someone like, well, Rhea as well. I think I'm kind of hoping we'll get a goal this game,
Ooh, that'd be
because
cool.
yeah, because obviously the whole deal was like they're far too codependent on each other, and Rio scoring would be like completely breaking that. If instead of passing to Nagi, he manages to get a goal himself, I
Mm.
think that would be a very good way for him to overcome that. And like, he's more than capable of doing so. So if he,
Yeah.
so yeah,
I'm going back and forth on this all the time, right? Because obviously this was his big development in the third selection, that he suddenly decides to score by himself
mm,
rather than pass to Nagi. And then
yeah,
at the start of Manshine, it's again,
yes.
that's he's the first one to actually
He's just
attempt to
like, yeah, he's the
score.
first shot of the game, isn't he? Yeah,
Yeah. And in Manshine, the uh kind of the sense you get is that he thinks he should be doing this. He should be trying to score himself because that's what Blue Lock teaches him.
mm,
And it doesn't quite go where he wants it to go.
yeah,
And I feel like, because oddly enough, it's the same with, a character like Hiyori, right? Where he felt this
yeah,
pressure in Ubers. He has this moment where he has an existential crisis, right? There's,
yeah,
okay, am I going to do what I've been taught in Blue Lock? And he tries that, and that actually fails. And then he finds out, actually, my ego isn't quite this, but I can still be an egoist
mm,
without being a striker.
yeah,
And especially because these two, in a sense, I find the stories of Gale and Hiyori, the way they're structurally paralleled, there's a lot of kind of small structural things between Manshine and Ubers in particular. I get the sense that that is also a development Reo has to go through, but I don't know where this is going yet.
Yeah, no, it's obviously like it's something we've been waiting a long time to see what's going to happen. I mean, obviously, I mean, the PXG match has been a year, obviously. Yeah, I really don't know where this one's going to go. The only thing that just occurred to me whilst you were talking then about Hiyori is obviously a lot of the characters kind of like follow their parents as such. So like Hiyori's parents were upset with making the world's greatest striker. Now Hiyori's taken that on.
Oh, right. Actually, I never quite realized that. That's actually very funny.
No, obviously Kaiser is very much like perpetuating that cycle, like doing the same thing his father did. And yeah, obviously Hiyori's doing this kind of like the same sort of thing. And so I was just thinking,
I'm actually making a note of this now.
That's all right. I was just thinking, like, what would that look like for Rio if he was going to follow after his parents? Because they're just like businessmen, right? So that's all we kind of know about them. They're just like very firm, very focused billionaires.
Yeah, good question. I actually don't know where that would go, but that is actually very interesting. I hadn't quite made the click of, yeah, you're right, it's Kaiser, Hiyori, following their parents' footsteps.
I guess Batra to an extent as well with his mum.
Yeah.
I suppose maybe the one exception is Isagi when he kind of like, you know, in chapter 284 starts throwing hands with people. But for the most part, he's obviously very polite like his parents. I think typically from what we've seen, they do kind of like, you know, inherit their parents' like traits, desires, whatever you want to call it. So it's as if Rio will do the same. And if so, I don't know what that would look like.
No. Especially, I guess all of them, that's really interesting that because they all kind of rebel against their parents. And Hiyori finds a healthy way to do where his parents do the same, but it's extremely toxic. And then Kaiser, he's
still kind of stuck in that, isn't he? Yeah. No, I kind of, when I was I'm obviously making a Kaiser video at the moment, and it kind of clicked to me like, yeah, obviously a lot of the characters do really take after their parents. So yeah.
Yeah, I just saw a quick question in the chat from Kinzo, which I thought was
do
actually
you think Rin will fall off at the end of the series? As in like the very end of Blue Lock. Like, I don't think he will fall off as such. Like, he will be one of the best strikers in the world for sure. Like, I would be quite surprised if he wasn't. Because I still feel like he's figuring things out, honestly. Like, a lot of the NEL has been characters figuring out, like, what works for them. Like, Chigury's got his little zone thing, which seems to be doing really well. But I think Rin still hasn't quite fully figured it out for himself yet. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, honestly, in the next arc he goes back to being, like, the number one still. Yeah, we'll see. I'm not expecting him to ever be any lower than sort of like the top few strikers in the world, personally.
That's very fair, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I find interesting about Rin? So, the kind of structurally, I think one of the things that people, I see a lot of Rin discourse right now, that people don't like the way his character has gone in the NEL. I think that's just partly because there is a very elaborate storyline for him planned, where so the U20 match is basically him rejecting, the expectations of others, being, playing for others. And then the NEL, the PXG match, is him reinventing himself from zero, basically.
Yeah.
You get this kind of form of Rin, which is, okay, what if we literally, more so than with any other Blue Lock player, scrape away every veneer of society, civilization, and have someone who now operates purely on instinct, purely on his pleasures. That's also, and I'm going to probably say this a few times this stream, so apologies in advance. I basically just finished recording my big PXG analysis. I have quite a bit to say about this, but that's like, why is there so much talk about Rin and sexuality in the PXG? Because he's now unbounded by any restraints on his desires, and that's kind of figurized by this constant talk about his pleasure points, his kinks and everything. And towards the end now, we see, Rin starting to realize, wait, maybe I do need to actually also take into account the world around me.
Yeah.
And he's getting a bit of that puppet master back again. So I do feel like the trajectory is going to be he has destroyed himself in U20. We're now at ground zero, where he's actually figured out, who am I? What do I want? What's my deep ego? And then we can see from here, okay, but how can you turn that into a functional play style long term?
Yeah. Yeah, because obviously, I mean, it's still as a bit of a side note. I was just thinking about, obviously, like when he was going to take that shot and then decided not to. It kind of made me laugh. This is a bit unrelated to reading that like Loki was like, oh, if you did that in a real match, you'd be banned for life. And then you've got Kaiser and Isagi like blocking each other's shots, tackling each other, and somehow this is just completely fine and no one seems to care. Obviously Rin's still got quite a lot to figure out. I think probably more than anyone except maybe Nagi.
Yes.
Still, yeah, I still don't think he fully understands what the right mindset for him is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, obviously, someone else was asking, like, what is going to be next for Blue Lock anyway? Like, are we going to go straight into the U20 tournament and then?
That's a good question, isn't it? Because the thing is, the NEL, as insane as it sounds to say, was framed as a training arc, right?
Yeah.
Where at the very start, it's okay, the U20 World Cup is around the corner. It's like, 100 days or something. You're not good enough. We're going to throw you into this environment that'll make you capable of being the world's best. So I can't see much more happening between now and the U20 World Cup.
Yeah.
I hope we get a bit of a breather. We get like 2 chapters kind of comparable to post U20.
Barrel bowling and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would really like, it's sort of quite related to the question we've had here. I would like to find out a bit more about like Henri, Ray Dark, some of the like behind the scenes things. Because we know, as this guy was asking, we still know nothing about Jinpachi besides was at one point Noah's rival.
Right.
I don't know if we're going to get any more on that just yet. I think, same with Henri, we probably won't find out. I think we both said we're kind of expecting a U20 defeat at the World Cup for Japan. And I think it'll
probably.
Yeah, I think probably. And I think it'll probably be after that we start to get the backstory of those two. I don't know if we'll get it before then.
Do you think Henri needs a backstory?
Probably not. I mean,
never really.
Yeah, I suppose
her.
It will just be a part of like how did she find Jinpachi? It'll probably just be a bit part of his story, realistically.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense actually.
Yeah, because obviously that has always been a really interesting one to me. Like what happened for this guy to somehow prove himself as like a coach? Because obviously no one's heard of him at all. Besides Snuffy somehow knows about him and Noah, but none of the players recognize him. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, currently, in terms of, like, to answer this guy's question, what do you think Jinpachi's backstory will be? I honestly don't have a clue at this point. Obviously, he used to be a player, used to be a very good player. My personal guess is some sort of injury stopped him.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I've seen people say, like, oh, he probably just got booted off the team for, like, being too selfish or whatever. I kind of struggle to see that, like, really ending his career. I mean, I don't know. I suppose that would make sense why he has this almost like hatred for the Japanese style of football.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously it's a strange one as to how him and Noah were ever rivals in the first place, when we know Noah grew up in, like, the French slums. So how did him and Jinpachi ever become rivals is beyond me currently. Because they said they were teammates, didn't they, right?
Yes.
I think at one point they used to be teammates.
Yeah, they used to.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe ended up in the same subsidiary team, in the same youth team, something like that, that they're in training and then one of them made it pro, the other didn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just kind of thinking out loud now, I'm actually wondering if, because obviously Ego there seems to be spite towards the Japanese mentality.
His attitude to Kira in particular, he was like, yeah, get out, dude. Yeah. He was really like, seemed to take joy in that.
Yeah, and I'm wondering then, is this from a place of self-hatred? Is this he made the same mistake?
Interesting.
Is that what he was too cooperative? Because the thing is, actually, in chapter 1, Noah is an archetypical egoist. I prefer to score a hat trick and lose over winning 1-0.
Imagine, what was it? I think Snuffy compared him and Noah to Isugi and Barrow, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. But just seeing good friend of mine who helped me with the Blue Lock in Japanese video is in the chat. Hey there. Good to see you.
We're having a read. I always had a feeling that the scene where Ego describes some Japanese football player got sent abroad, didn't feed and returned was a self-insert. I mean, possibly.
Which I guess is very funny if your man is called Ego, but
I don't believe that's his real name, personally. There's just there's absolutely no way this guy's surname is actually Ego. There's just no way. And I suppose that would also kind of explain why people don't recognize him as well, right? Like, maybe he did actually get to quite a good level and change his name for whatever reason. Yeah, I feel like the author's like, he's going to have to come up with something pretty incredible at this point, because I feel like we're all really looking forward to finding out what this is going to be. No, it's definitely one of the things I'm most excited to find out about, looking forward. But yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, can I, by the way, because it came up a bit with Kunigami, right? We were talking about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about the way he was portrayed in the PXG match?
In the PXG match? I don't know. I think this is kind of a thing where, like, I feel like it really depends what happens next. Because if it was a case of, like, you know, he started off, like, they hyped him up so much, you know, like the next Noah, perfect striker, everything. And there's obviously just been this, like, decline throughout. I feel like it's because I mean, the blank slate thing that Jinpachi was talking about almost made me wonder if he was like intentionally setting up Kunigami to fail for whatever reason, because it just seems so odd
Yeah.
otherwise. You know, maybe he's using it to because I think he said something like, "Oh, you're here just to improve the level in the NEL" or something like that. Which, if that's all it turns out to be, and we never really see from him again, then that is a bit disappointing. But if this is like, he started off well and he's had this decline, he needs to figure something else out, and then maybe in like the first U20 tournament match, we start to see something cool from him. Then I might not mind as much. But currently, yeah, I do feel a bit disappointed by it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, as you said, like it was one of the big storylines at the start. Like, how is this guy the one person who can keep up with these like elite U20 players? Like, what has happened where we've beat the Japanese U20 team, and somehow this guy we've not seen for the last couple of months has come back all sort of like dark and emo and is suddenly like better than any of us. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's a bit of to not get an answer for that 150 chapters in is a little disappointing. There's some like little clues of heavily like very, very intense physical training, but yeah, I would have liked to see a lot more from him for sure.
That's fair. Yeah, it's because again, I've so rereading PXG, I found that his character is used in more interesting ways and ties into the overall ideas of PXG more than I initially thought. So I've actually kind of on reread come to appreciate how he slots in. But nevertheless, I do agree that the way he was set up at the start, it didn't quite hit. And I
Yeah,
am sad that it's because at the start of the NEL, it really is. Here are the two big conflicts or two big storylines. There's Kaiser, there's Kunigami.
yeah,
And one is maybe that's also an issue. The fact that Kaiser's story is so
oh,
unbelievably good. He's one of the best antagonists
yeah,
I've ever seen in the
yeah,
manga.
yeah. I think part of me does wonder if he just thought having Kaiser and Kunigami as two kind of big rivals was just too much. And so that's why
Yeah.
that storyline kind of drifted into the background a bit. But it's because I mean, the other thing that kind of clicked me the other day is that he will never get another chance to beat Shido outside of like the club match now.
But he did, in all fairness,
I mean, he did like shut him down.
shut him down a lot.
But I don't know if he feels like he's got revenge yet. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like he was able to stop him, but I don't know if he will be fully satisfied with that just yet. I mean, we'll see.
Right.
We'll see. Yeah.
That's a good question, actually. I hadn't thought. Yeah, because in that sense, so I know this is kind of why when I did my Kunigami video, and this was way before PXG, I was on the train that actually the conflict with Shido was a bit overplayed because it's not really his, or I felt that way before PXG, that this wasn't quite his character to be someone who holds grudges and wants to shut down others.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what he's been doing in the PXG match. And it feels like, okay, I was just hoping for a bit more of what you represent, your ideas, how being in the wild card has challenged that.
Yeah, it's Yeah, because I mean, the whole thing about him abandoning his whole deal about being a hero. Um, we kind of saw a bit of that at the start.
Mhm. Yeah, and
If it
we've
really
gone
is just a
full
case,
circle.
yeah, I was gonna say if it really is just a case of like now he just has nothing because of Jinpachi's whole like I'll become a blank slate,
Mhm.
then like that would be quite disappointing. I would really like to see him, having this conflict of like, oh, should I go back to that? Should I not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of time to do something with him in the future. But it
Mhm.
is certainly at least strange that not more happened. I think.
Yeah, I feel like that as well.
Uh,
Um, okay, just say because this is a question I find interesting. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think Blue Lock's right after U20 feels downwards, or is it better? Where are you on that train?
I wouldn't say it feels downwards at all. Like I've really liked the NEL. At first, I was a little uncertain on it
Hmm.
because to me, initially it didn't quite have that Blue Lock vibe. That like that kind of like real. How do I put it? You know how like in the first selection, it's this real like ruthless cutthroat, like battle royale
Hmm.
type feel. I feel like it kind of lacked that initially, until like the Manshine match got going, and then I felt like, oh yeah, this feels like Blue Lock again. But personally, I've honestly really loved the NEL. I still think, I mean, the U20 match is still probably my favorite arc. But
That's very
I
fair.
don't
Yeah.
think that's because the writing's gone downwards. I think it's just because like that was kind of like the payoff to all the stuff beforehand.
Yeah.
Likewise, the NEL is now the setup for the U20 tournament, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the only real reason why like the U20 match was maybe a bit better. But yeah, I've loved the NEL. I have very little to complain about on it. Yeah.
Yeah, for myself, actually, the NEL is straight up my favorite part of the manga.
Yeah.
I and there are very few parts I dislike, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's like if I'd rank, I'd probably have NEL, then second selection, then U20, then first, then third selection. Um, where, but I think there are no bad arcs in Blue Lock,
No, same.
legitimately,
Yeah.
which is
It's
quite
crazy how
extraordinary.
consistent
Yeah.
it is for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know about, what was it that made you start Blue Lock out of curiosity?
Uh, to be honest, it was just so this must have been around October 2022. Is that right? Yeah, 2022. And I was just seeing the name pop up a lot on
Yeah, it's
social
when the
media,
anime
on
was
Twitter.
releasing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was around the anime time, and I just looked it up. It seemed like an interesting premise, and I started reading. It's yeah, like I'm very strict on myself for finishing manga usually. So I have bunch of ongoing manga that I'm keeping up with, but then I'll only have one manga that I'm actually reading digitally, and
Right.
then probably something I'm reading physically
Yeah.
whenever I can. I have some extra money for volumes, but I kind of broke my rule for Blue Lock just to kind of see. I thought I'm gonna check out one or two chapters to see what the vibe is,
Yeah.
and I was hooked. So
Yeah. Yeah,
I
that first or the first episodes, like
yeah.
to the end of that tag selection, I guess might honestly be my favorite episode one in any anime. It
I
just had
totally
me
get that.
so hooked. The last thing I was expecting was for him to turn on Kira. Yeah, I mean, in all my videos, I end up going back to that first episode. Like, I think it's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I think similar thing. Like, I just heard it mentioned a bunch. And obviously with Haikyuu being my favorite series, I thought, oh, it's another sports anime I'll check out. And was absolutely blown away by how much better it was than I was expecting.
Yeah, same.
Probably the series I underestimated the most going into. It's still amazing me just how consistent it's been, how fantastic it's been throughout. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, what was the moment that you really fell in love with Blue Lock, where it went from, okay, this is interesting to this is one of my favorite things ever? Was that just straight up episode 1?
I think that definitely had me hooked, but I wouldn't I don't think at a point I was like, oh wow, episode 1 was a lot better than I was expecting. I think probably Chiguru's goal against Team W. That was crazy to me. I loved that. I think that was the moment where I was like, yeah, I'm definitely reading this once I finish this season.
Gotcha. Okay, out of curiosity, because I've actually never seen the anime for season 1. They, Chiguru's goal, is that really like a big thing there? Do they, fire off and all?
They got a whole unique soundtrack, which is probably like what really elevates it as well. And obviously, like, Blue Lock's animation is a little, even in season 1, is a little lacking at points. But for that goal, it was really, really good. Yeah.
Okay, I might just check it out at some point because I see a lot of people, for them, Chiguru's goal is one of their favorite moments. I like the scene a lot. It's never been up there that high as where I see other people have it. And now wondering, is that just because the anime?
I think the soundtrack really might be what elevates it looking back. It's yeah. Yeah, definitely what I can tell you, because I've used that scene so many times. It's like episode 7, about halfway through. I got to a point where I was using that clip so many times I knew the exact timestamp of it. Because my clips are all just a mess, just all in a folder. I should probably label them at some point to save a lot of time. But yeah. I think Chiguru's goal was probably the one for me. What about you?
It was the 3v3 with Barrow for me.
Okay.
The kind of the moments, because it has 2 of my absolute favorite moments in the series. Firstly, when Isagi goes, just move for my goals, you whatever translation you're using. And that just had me shook. Yes, obviously you kind of go into something like this where you're like, okay, but surely the story is going to still give you some flavor of power of friendship. They learn how to cooperate.
Yeah, I thought the same.
It's just and it's an absolute middle finger for that. And then towards the end, then Barrow, and you feel really good because Barrow, and I'm saying this as him being my favorite character, but he is an absolute bully, right? He is a villain. You want him to go down. You hate the fact that he refuses to pass the first time around, at least. And so it just feels good that he's getting dunked on and put in his place.
Yeah.
But then he gets his sudden revival, and you're like, wait, no, now I'm rooting for this character.
Yeah, it's just a bit of a side note. It's always crazy how Barrow's first introduction is just like, okay, skilled player, follows Jinpachi's ideas, and that kind of seems like all he's going to be. But I can't seem to make a video about it somehow linking to Barrow. Like in every Blue Lock video I make, somehow like a big chunk of it has to link to Barrow somehow. Like even this Kaiser video, there's like, the two have a lot of similarities, like with how both played football to try and drag people down. Obviously, there's a few others. My mind's got a bit blank. But there's quite a few similarities with the pair. It's crazy how, as you say, you start off just being like, okay, who is this guy? And as the series goes on, there's just so much more to say about him. He just somehow becomes so likable despite being the way he is. Yeah, it's such a great character. Yeah, no, that's. I think that was certainly one of my favorite scenes as well, where that the awakening he has in that 3v3, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's also just the fact this is maybe the purest form of this ongoing conflict in Blue Lock, right? Because there's fundamentally this paradox of, okay, you are supposed to be an egoist that's, you want to be the best version of yourself you can be, and you want to be the one who is scoring, who is ensuring the team wins, but at the same time it's a team sport, and those two are always to a certain extent in conflict, that's I think what makes Blue Lock, or one of the things that makes Blue Lock so interesting, that you have to constantly negotiate and go this way, that Isagi oscillates, everyone else oscillates, and Bago is just kind of the purest form of this, just the guy who refuses to pass on a very fundamental level like that.
Yeah,
like, it's so
it's
silly.
Like the real epitome of it, isn't it? Yeah, like the absolute definition of like what Jinpachi says at the start, where they would rather score and lose.
Yeah. And he says exactly that. It's like, one time he's then forced to pass, he sees himself like a broken man, an alcoholic, unemployed, somewhere in this small flat.
Yeah, it's funny. The first video I made in it, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of get it. Like, sure, you take the easy route once, so you're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Now I kind of look back at it as like, that. I think I say this like pretty much word for word in my Kaiser video, where it's like, that one pass is not going to cause him to end up like that. His attitude towards it might, where he's like almost giving up on himself.
Yeah.
But this one pass is not going to cause him to live like that. Yeah, no, Barra was great. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here on out, because obviously Japan is not going to funnel goals to him like Ubers did. So is he going to go back to that whole, kind of like lying in wait to kind of ambush someone, steal the ball off them? Because that's surely only going to work for so long before teams kind of wise up to it. And you're effectively playing almost like 10 versus 11 or 10 and a half versus 11, where half the time he's just waiting to tackle the ball off his own teammate, right? So I don't know. I don't know what's going to go forward with him. But yeah.
I go back and forth on this, whether it's going to be such a straightforward arc or not, but I do really like in the Ubers match that he effectively does undergo a leadership arc, where his whole shtick of "I'm the king," he has at the start of the series this very simplistic idea of what it actually means to be a king, and that gets challenged. But then over the course of the Ubers match, it's like, okay, but being king isn't just about the biggest alpha male and everyone giving the ball to you. Suddenly he starts defending, he starts coordinating, and I would love to see that being explored even further. Of, okay, like, because Blue Lock is very interested in leadership all across the boards. And again, his character is such a way to touch on the topic. So that's a hope on my end.
Yeah,
maybe
even
it's too optimistic.
Rin and Shido are passing to each other, so I suppose just about anything is possible, really. And what was I going to say? I got slightly distracted by the chat message. I guess we kind of know a bit of what happens next chapter now. I was talking about Barra, wasn't I? Yeah. Because there's only so long they can keep doing this whole, like, he's just going to steal the ball of his teammates for. Like, there's only so long they can do that for, right? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes. I suppose I don't know about you. I suppose we may as well talk about what we've just seen in the chat, because it's like we've seen it now.
I haven't, to be honest.
Have you not? I wouldn't have a look then. Yeah. Not what I was expecting, but interesting. Interesting. That's not at all what I was expecting. One thing that did occur to me is, this is obviously a little unrelated to Blue Lock. Remind me how far into Haikyuu you read? I think the end of Shiratorizawa, was it?
Yeah, I read up to the Tokyo tournament qualification. So I forget what the team's name is. You've got like the cat school, and
Nakama.
they go through this tournament to secure a place in the spring tournament.
There's that part. Right, yeah.
And
Okay.
I read up to the point where they basically just got in, with a lot of, or they lost a match or something, I believe, and then eventually they did secure the spots. But I'm a bit patchy here.
Yeah. Basically the point I was going to make is when you were saying like, surely, on first watch through, before you got to the whole, Isagi saying whatever he said to Bara, depending on what translation you read. Obviously before that, expecting it to go some sort of like power of friendship angle. One thing I see quite often, this isn't too related to Blue Lock, is I see people saying Blue Lock and Haikyuu like directly oppose each other in terms of their ideas. Personally, I really disagree with that. But I'd be interested to see what you think based on what you've read so far.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts, because the honest answer is I haven't quite. I mean, obviously, I haven't finished Haikyuu, and I haven't reflected on it as much as you obviously have. It's like, for me, it is a very easy dichotomy because if I'm trying to think of what is Blue Lock not, or what is Blue Lock in a way reacting against, Haikyuu is a very good example of a lot of the tropes, where like you do end up like the central conflict at the very beginning, Hinata and Kageyama, having these personalities that just don't mesh, and then they find that through. Actually, they don't have to like each other as people, but as teammates, they can actually elevate each other. Which I guess, now I'm just talking out loud, right? Is not.
It's kind of like a chemical reaction as such, I suppose. Personally, this is something I'm going to make a video on at some point. I actually don't think there's a lot in these series which contradict each other. I think they're going very different angles for sure, but I don't think there's ever anything in Haikyuu besides the obvious of like, in volleyball you cannot be a solo player because you can only touch the ball and you've got to have 3 touches and whatnot. But I don't think there's really anything where they directly contradict each other. For the overwhelming majority of it. But yeah, that's something I'll make a video on another time.
No, I'd be actually interested in seeing that video.
Yeah.
Also, at some point, I've got like some half-baked ideas where I might want to at some point just push back against indeed the, how much is Blue Lock actually a deconstruction of sports manga, because it's got this odd thing where it almost feels like you do get power of friendship through the back door. And you call it differently, you frame it differently, but a lot of the values that Haikyuu professes, you do find them in Blue Lock as well to a certain extent.
I mean, I'm seeing someone in chat say Kuruka no Basket, which I don't know if you've seen, the basketball one.
No, I haven't. It is on my list.
Yeah, same. It's apparently all about punishing ego.
Okay.
which would be interesting to see.
Because I have heard about Kuroko that there's apparently both a character who quite resembles Rin and a character who quite resembles Chigiri, if I'm not mistaken. Chat, please feel free to correct me. And that Blue Lock might be directly reacting to it. So that's actually one of the reasons I
That
would be
would be
curious to
interesting.
at some point,
Yeah.
because I would love to. If I'm doing a video indeed about Blue in the sports manga genre, if there is a like Blue Lock directly commenting on an earlier
Yeah.
manga in the genre, that'd be very good for the arguments and just very interesting as a case study.
Yeah. There's obviously the other football one. I don't know how you pronounce it. Both Ao Ashi. Do you know the one I mean? Yeah.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I haven't read it, so
Yeah. Which I've heard a lot about. And apparently for the most part, it's quite different to Blue Lock. There's a lot of things of like, doing what's best for the team rather than yourself and whatnot. But there's also certain chapters where it talks a bit about the best players having a kind of like an ego as such and being very selfish. And I don't know much of the context of that, but that's probably another interesting one for that. I mean, if anyone in the chat kind of knows about that, it'd be interesting to hear.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, someone Charlene Boss says Hinata is secretly the biggest egoist of all. Is Hinata the biggest volleyball egoist?
Egoist. The thing is, there is a part. I think you might have actually got past it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you would have. Where he actually.
I don't mind spoilers, by the way, for Haikyuu.
Yeah, I was going to
spoil a bit here and there already.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, regardless, I think it's in like season 2. Where there's a whole thing about Hinata wants to be able to fight more on his own without Kageyama, right?
Yes.
And so he starts practicing this new attack, which causes the team to lose basically every game because he's constantly messing it up.
Oh, yes.
But to him, to him, it's like, well, okay, sure, but I still want to do this for myself.
Yes.
Right. Even though it might negatively affect the team now, for me as a player, this is something I want to do to be able to improve. So yeah, I mean, to go back to that initial point, although they're obviously not pushing the same ideas, I do think this whole they directly oppose each other is quite overblown, in my opinion. But yeah, that'll be obviously a separate video, which will probably be quite a tough one to write. Because there's obviously like trying to write about 2 different series at once I've always found quite hard. But yeah.
And both 2 long series with a lot in them, because I don't think you could, like, okay, Blue Lock is about ego, but if you actually want to distill that into video format, that's why I've never done that video.
Yeah, I'm planning to do a full Isagi video from like how his mindset has evolved over the whole series at some point. And that's going to be a rough one. I find, I have a friend who, like, I'll ask him about a manga he's read 3 years ago, and somehow he just remembers all the details, like the entire story from start to finish. I really struggle with that. Like, if it's been a few months since I've read a series, I will have to reread it all to be able to make a video on it. But yeah.
Yeah, for me, there's series that I have reread a few times that I know quite well. Like, for, let's say, as odd as it may sound, I know One Piece, I feel like, by heart.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah, maybe not the most recent arcs, but I could tell you, let's say, pretty much anything that happens in any lobby, I could probably mention it.
Really?
Just because I have, gone back to One Piece over and over again. And there's some other manga like Honey and Clover, Bakuman. There, I can cite very niche things in them, certain lines of dialogue. But if I've only read a manga once, I'm very patchy as well.
Yes, Yeah.
With Haikyuu, for example, if you were to quiz me now on what I've actually read, and this is only like what 3-4 months ago or something like that, I'd be like, ooh, that'd be rough.
No, I think for me, I would love to make One Piece videos at some point because like it's so vast. There's so much I can like cover on it. But I would have to reread the entire series, and that is a long task. Like I think I would only do that if I was going to commit to making One Piece videos for like at least a year for it to be worth it. I'm just going to reply to this guy. Just end of Karasuno? That's not it. Shiratorizawa. Definitely not end of Karasuno. That doesn't really make any sense. I don't mind spoilers. Far away. Ooh. Not planning to...
I've already been told that my Haikyuu OTP actually goes somewhere, which I'm very happy about.
Okay.
The what's her name now? The new manager.
I should know this. I've read it like 20 times. Why do I not remember? She's actually quite an interesting character as well. I know who you mean. Yeah.
That was legit. Her arc was my favorite part.
It's a good one, isn't it? Yeah.
I love just how well she and Hinata... Oh, Yachi. Thanks.
Yeah.
How well Hinata and Yachi just meshed, and they come to understand each other and respect each other. They can each do what the other can't. They had so much chemistry. So that was one thing where when I was spoiled on that, I was just very happy to hear that, because there are not that many, like...
Oh, is in the two getting together?
Don't they? Or at least I thought I was
Not
told
that I don't believe it's...
What?
I don't believe so, no. Unless I've missed something huge.
Well, I trust you on Haikyuu.
Yeah, I certainly don't think it's confirmed.
Okay.
I don't think we have any idea if Hinata's like married or whatever.
Okay.
Unless I've missed something huge. I mean, we know, like, I don't know if I want to go into Haikyuu spoilers if like someone's here for Blue Lock or whatever. But in the final arc, obviously they're still messaging each other, but he's still messaging like everyone, right? I don't think there's any confirmation there. So yeah, that is the one confirmed one, Tanaka and Shimizu. I believe it's the only... Shimizu is the original manager.
Oh, sorry, wait. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he finally manages that.
Fair play to him.
Yeah.
She's too good for him, but I'm glad that...
No, I love Tanaka. Oh,
I love him as well.
Yeah.
But she is out of his league.
Someone I said I'd come back to is, what are your opinions on Rio? So we kind of spoke about this briefly earlier. The main thing we were talking about is, like, be interested to see if anyone has an idea on this now. Is obviously we've seen, like, Kaiser kind of took after his father, right? And Hiyori kind of took over his parents. Would Rio take anything from his parents? And if so, what would that look like? Yeah, if anyone has kind of like an answer for that, do let us know. But yeah. I mean, the only other thing I was thinking with Rio is I'm kind of hoping he'll score next game, because I think we've only seen him score once in the first selection, and that's it from memory. Oh, and the third selection as well. Yeah. So it'd be cool to see that again.
Did he not score in the... I actually don't know this by heart. Did he not score in the 3v3? Who scored?
No, he didn't. It was 2 for Chiguri, 2 for Kunigami.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember because when I was doing my Blue Lock little trivia polls each day, that was one of the ones I put on there. Yeah, Rio didn't actually score in that selection. We might, because I believe episode Nagi looks like it's going to go through Rio's time in the second selection.
Yeah.
So we might see him score. Also means we might actually get an Igaguri goal, because obviously he was teammates with Igaguri, so we might see an Igaguri goal, which would be an absolute dream for me.
Yeah, the biggest Igaguri fan.
Oh man, I'd be so excited. I mean, so he's got a 3v3, the 4v4, and then, I mean, he didn't score against the Wild 5, right? Only Shido scored.
Yeah.
So he's got 2 games to, yeah. So, but yeah, we might see an Igaguri goal. I mean, yeah, because I don't think we've really spoken about the greatest character yet. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think it is the end for him, sadly.
I just see the answer to the question.
Rio's father claimed. Interesting.
That's actually very good.
That is a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yep. I think this
kind of expects him to follow along with his dream, and then he's now doing the same with Nagi, even though it's not really what Nagi particularly necessarily wants, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the answer. I think
that's it. Yeah, for sure. Rio Impact incoming.
That would actually be really cool.
That would be pretty cool. I mean, he can't do it though, right? He can't copy I was about to say Igaguri Impact there. The Kaiser Impact. Right? Because it's like a specific, like he can't copy like Chiguri Speed or something, right? So I think it's a similar thing.
No, that's a good question, because, yeah, to what extent is the Kaiser Impact technique? To what extent is it just pure physical,
just like muscle fibers? Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like because it's just the speed of the swing, right? It's not anything else. So it feels to me like it's something you won't really be able to copy personally.
I guess that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think he even needs to. Like, to me, it's amazing that Rio isn't. Like, he has all the makings of someone who could, get close to the top 5, I think. Like, size dribbling, Rin shooting, Nagi's ball control. And now we saw he has metavision as well, right? So he's got everything you could ever. He's almost like, build the perfect player. And he's got half of their stuff, right? The only thing he'd maybe be missing is like Chiguri Speed or something. So I don't know why he's like, if he figures out his mindset, he should be a starting member at the very least, for sure.
Yeah. A quick question, by the way. Do you hear any annoying sounds coming, some band sounds?
I don't personally.
Okay, then we're good. Yeah. No, there's kind of the way the flat is built. I sometimes get. I think it's when someone else in their kitchen used the fan and that's started. But if it's not bothering, then
no, I don't hear it at all.
Yeah. Okay.
Once I've seen someone put, if Kaiser is a talented learner, he could do it. Rio could do it too. I don't think being a talented learner necessarily means that like Rio can copy their abilities. Like, it doesn't mean that they don't have some sort of... And also, on this note, I think in, like, these binary categories of, like, genius, talented, learner, I think at some point might need to be more of, like, a spectrum. I don't quite know how that would actually work in practice for Isekai, but I think in reality, it certainly is more of a spectrum. Same with the, like, world style, self style. Because there was someone in my comments asking me like, oh, where would you put yourself? And I was thinking about it and it's like, I don't think I just fit into one of these. I think everyone is kind of somewhere on the spectrum in between the two. Right. So to me, like, Kaiser isn't like 100, like, if this is like 100% talented learner, 100% genius, he's maybe like 70-30, I don't know, like 70% talented learner or something. Yeah,
because even like someone like Isagi is at the start of the manga an above average player.
Yeah.
He's for like just a ordinary high school player. He
But
is
he's like
good.
their star player, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
So the fact that you're a talented learner doesn't mean that you don't have above average physical abilities already. Um,
yeah.
Out of curiosity, actually, do you think that the whole ego type framework will be prominent going
I,
forward?
don't-
Or,
I was thinking this Joe though because he kind of introduces thing like a new thing each like arc, doesn't he?
yeah,
So yeah, I think it will still be around. But like he's going to introduce something new. And I don't know what it could be at this point. Because obviously at this point, Isuki is almost like reading people's minds. He's like, yeah, this
yeah.
person wants to do this, so they're going to act this way.
Mhm.
So I don't know what could be further than that. You know, like
Right, okay, yeah.
what does he add on top of this? You know, it started off with him using his spatial awareness. Then it was kind of like thinking a couple steps ahead. And now, obviously, in the NEL, he's thinking like 10 steps ahead. He's thinking, this person's thinking this person's thinking this.
Yeah.
I don't know how it can go further than where it currently is. Like,
Yeah.
what is going to be the final piece that allows him to, like, overcome someone like Loki? Like,
Right.
what on
Yeah, I
earth
think
is that going to
yeah.
be?
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just having a
Yeah.
quick read through. Surely Genius Talent to Learn is like an 80-20 thing. If you're more, yeah. So yeah, as I said, I don't think it's just going to be binary categories. I think it'll be like a spectrum. Um,
Yeah, I've seen people in my comments also say maybe the point is that at some point these categories need to be deconstructed. That's
split like
because
further.
yeah, or even that like I'm not sure if I agree with this, but I find it interesting to consider because in and that's been highlighted in both Manshine and PXG, Isagi isn't always right. He isn't his insights aren't necessarily word of God.
Yeah.
And like I always love the scene with him and Yukimiya, where just everything Isagi says makes sense of okay, we can work together, we can do this and that, and yet he's also incredibly naive. And I wonder is the whole notion that there is a distinction between genius and talented learners. I'm not sure if the manga is going to go that
Yeah.
but I could see it going that way. Is that something that's he has imposed on himself as a mental block that at some point will be deconstructed?
Yeah. I suppose maybe like more at the moment, it's more of just like, it's just kind of like an easy, manageable way for him to be able to like categorize people and how they're thinking, right?
Yeah.
Than something that's like pinpoint, super accurate. But yeah, no, that's an interesting one. Like, will he just completely break down those categories and go for something else entirely?
Yeah. If you want, one of the things that, if you go back to read Barca now, what gets completely flipped on its head, there's this big spread right after Kaiser scores his first goal in Barca, where Isagi goes, he's a genius.
Yeah.
And that's how he has this. And of course, that's complete. Like, at the time, you don't think much of that. But
yeah.
now, that's why it's so cool to go back to Barca. Now we understand that, wait a minute, he completely misunderstood what kind of person Kaiser is. And it took a whole arc to actually make sense of his rival.
Yeah, Well, the thing is, we don't, because just thinking about it now, is he, I saw someone say like, oh, Isuki needs to work on his physical attributes. And that's not wrong, but that's never going to be his strength. Like, he will never be a player like Rin who is just like so overwhelming at everything, and that's how he gets past everyone. So in that case, what does he do? Does he go even further into this whole like mind reading thing? Like breaking people down even further, being able to predict their moves even more accurately? Because he's already very, like, he's pretty spot on. Like, as you said, he's sometimes wrong. But it's still like, oh, you know, someone did something unexpected. And like, he was mostly correct, except maybe the last piece was out of place. And so does it just go the route of becoming even better at that? Because he's already so insanely good at it. Like, how can he possibly be even better? And this is like, from kickoff, he's going to predict the entire match or something. I don't know where they can take it further.
No, I struggle with that as well. That it feels like that's also why. I think structurally, I feel like there should be 2 World Cups. There should be, because Isagi should win against Noah eventually. That's why we can't have a U20 World Cup victory. But I feel like he's so close to the finish line by this point already. Like, you can't.
How could he keep doing this for so long? Because I think I worked out a while back. Like, assuming there's no training arcs, nothing else going on. So obviously, like, the World Cup have like a group stage and then a knockout tournament. Yeah. And if it's the same as real life, it's like 8 groups of 4, top 2 go through. So the group stage is 3 matches. And then that knockout tournament is between 1 and 4. Yeah. So if they make it all the way, that's 7 matches. And they're not going to be quick matches. Like, this PXG one was a year. Imagine how long the U20 final is going to be. Or the World Cup final is going to be like 3 years long, right? So, is he really going to do that? Like, I was wondering if the other day if we'll have the full U20 tournament, and then maybe it will time skip to like the semi-finals or the finals of the actual World Cup. And the other thing is, although this is like a little dark, and I'm obviously like hoping it doesn't happen, it really, like, the fact that Blue Lock is a weekly series blows my mind. Especially in the Ubers match where every panel of Barra was just like unbelievably well drawn. Like, you wouldn't blame him if it took him a week just to draw one of those. So part of me does, just like with the way so many manga writers have health issues, is this really something they're going to be doing for another decade? You know, because it seems like it must be an unbelievable amount of work.
Yeah. In all fairness, let me just quickly grab a volume there. Like, there are...
World Cup final is going to be a chapter a minute at this rate. Yeah, 90 chapters.
There are 10 assistants working on this.
Oh,
right?
are there?
So there's
10?
11. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
11 people who are drawing this. So I wouldn't be surprised
That makes more sense.
Nomura only draws
a very rough outline.
Outlines of the characters, and then like all the backgrounds, all the speed lines, all the potentially even some of the auras are all done by assistants because
that makes 100 times more sense. I had this, for some reason I assumed it was like 2 or 3 people. That makes so much more sense. I was wondering, like, how on earth, if one person's writing this, does one person draw this in a week?
I know.
I imagine he probably hired extra help during the Ubers match as well. Okay. But even so, like, will they do it for another... Because mangas seem to be much shorter these days. You know, outside of One Piece, there's not too much in recent memory I can think of that's like over 500 chapters in terms of like big popular manga. Like Jujutsu Kaisen was like not even 300, I don't think. which was in part, I think, because he was like kind of pushed into making a series that he wasn't really interested in. Like he wanted it to be a horror and was kind of pushed for it to be a shonen. So I think eventually, despite his success, he was kind of like, yeah, I want to move on to something else. But yeah, there is kind of a trend of mangas not being as long as they used to.
Although actually, if you want, I'll just send you this. It's one of my favorites. Things like we've been, I assume yourself as well, kind of shaped in this big three era, right? The Naruto, Bleach, One Piece.
Not so. I think I was more.
Oh, you're one generation after that.
Yeah, I think I mean, the first anime I watched was Tokyo Ghoul, which was a weird one to start on. Then it was more Attack on Titan, Hero Academia, that kind of like.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Because basically, I have this is for just Shonen Jump. I'll just put it in the. Actually, I'm not sure if the YouTube chat will let me. I'll send it to you on Discord.
It should do, if not.
Let's see if this works. If you go here, this has for Shonen Jump a list at the bottom of the longest manga series they ever had. There are, like, Haikyuu is the 13th longest manga ever in Shonen Jump.
402. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah. So this idea that the popular long-running manga has like 700 chapters, that is completely
not a thing.
abnormal.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Wow, I that really shocks me to see Haikyuu like 13th on here. I'll put the link in for everyone else to be able to see. I've never even heard of this top one, I'm going to be honest, but
Oh yeah, it's like it's a comedy manga basically, which was running since the 70s or something, and it's absolutely bonkers. But how long that is, but it's kind of also the thing. My impression is it's like a sitcom in that you don't actually read the whole thing. You just tune in for this week's chapter. If you're interested, you might pick up a volume here or there. It's less of an ongoing story. So you're not expected to read all 2,000 chapters of Kunigami.
Yeah. Just a side note, I've had some, but which Blue Lock character would win at Mathletics, though? Would it be Kaiser? I mean, no, it would be Rio, right? Rio? I remember he was like...
Rio would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know how good Isagi was at school.
Yeah, Sai does have the what is it?
Oh, Sai, of course, yeah. Obviously it has the whole like numbers thing going on in the background. Yeah, so yeah. I suppose maybe, yeah. Rin is also framed as really good at academics. I can't remember if you... Am I thinking of someone... Was Rin... He was very good at languages. Was there something in his backstory about he wasn't actually that good at academics? Or am I wrong on that?
Ooh,
I might have pulled that out of nowhere.
See, the thing is, I don't know all the data book stuff that well, so it might be in the Egoist Bible or something.
Yeah. That's Rask, Akira.
Yeah, exactly.
He'll definitely
he is fluent in English.
Yeah, have you seen that part in the anime? I know you haven't seen it. Of Rin talking to the World 5.
I actually have, yeah. It is very funny.
It is a good one. In the novel, they mention that Isuka gets average grades at school. Yeah, that kind of seems about right to me, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to go back to this manga length discussion, as a side note, Kaiji is actually probably comparable to One Piece, I think, if you had all the 6 parts together, but not in Shonen Jump. And there hasn't been a new chapter in like 2 years now, which I'm very sad about. But also I think I imagine JoJo is probably much higher, but for some reason in Shonen Jump is about like 10 years behind the actual chapters. But
No, it's
yeah,
because JoJo, starting from part 7, moved to a different magazine. It went
yes,
monthly instead
yeah,
of weekly. That's why the number count here
yeah.
isn't quite accurate. JoJo's is longer than
But yeah,
this is up to part 6.
but still, regardless, look at us now. Like, you're completely right. Like, a lot of manga don't go past, like, even 300 is evidently
Yeah.
more than the overwhelming majority more of.
Yeah.
How long was Full Metal Alchemist not in Shonen Jump?
No, I think that's in like some quite niche magazine, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really? How many chapters are there in? 108, apparently.
Is it monthly?
Possibly, yeah. Because that seems a little. Mind you, it's not a very. It's like 60 odd episodes. That's surely monthly, right? November. It looks like it. Yeah.
I see
yeah,
27 volumes. So
yeah, I think monthly for sure.
yeah.
But yeah, interesting. How long are you predicting Blue Lock to be? Because yeah, as we said, if he does go the whole route of doing the entire U20 tournament, the entire World Cup,
Yeah.
like I will probably be about 40 by the time we see Japan lift the trophy.
Yeah. That's because I think I was saying that, or touched on that a bit earlier. I'm really conflicted because Blue Lock is an incredibly dense story. They don't just add matches for the sake of having matches. Every match has major developments for its characters. Every match has Isagi realize something new. I would be shocked if that style of writing were to change. And from that perspective, I find it difficult to imagine two more arcs the length of like either up to the U20 or the NEL. I would find it quite elegant if we get 3 times 150, but yeah, then you are stuck with either the U20 World Cup, so 7 matches in 150 chapters and no full World Cup, or the U20 will be very short.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But
I was going to say,
I saw the new volume cover. It's one of the sickest ones we've had.
I love
so far.
The Loki one. Yeah,
it's so good.
I would love to get one for each of the masters. If the Snuffy one is going to go so hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What was that? Yeah. Because you're right. Because we were saying about this earlier, actually, before we even like turn the stream on, about how he likes to kind of round it off exactly at like every 150 chapters, right? So yeah, one more 150 chapter arc would be interesting. Because the thing is, they're not going to go to U20 and lose in the group stage, right? Like, surely not. I mean, I don't know. Now that I say that, that would be kind of wild. Just to really show, like...
Yeah.
I kind of struggle to see it as well because Japan as a team is actually so strong now.
They're so stacked.
They're so crazy good. Like, they've got, let's say Isagi and Rin are like still like just below next generation 11 level, right? Baro, Shido, Bachira, Chiguri are probably like 75% there, right?
Yeah.
They have a crazy good team. So,
yeah.
I mean, for one, this is a whole other discussion, but I don't know how he's even going to make these games feel close, honestly. Like, because...
Yeah.
Like, I think I said about this in one of my videos, like, if they're against a team that just has one next generation 11 player, they should steamroll them. If that's the only threat they've got, because that was basically the Japanese team, right? They had Haikyuu and Sai, and no one else was particularly, like, stand out. That's like, they were like solid players, but those were the only two, like, standout players. And so they're all so much better compared to them. So... yeah, yeah, I don't even know how he's going to make these matches interesting. As in, like, feel close. And so with that in mind,
Yeah.
Japan is going to win at least a few games.
I'd imagine so as well. Yeah. I'm sure Kaneshiro has this thought out, and I'm just missing a piece right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I imagine he's got it all very much planned out. But obviously it is something that, so many big series do seem to struggle a bit of their endings, right? It has to be said, the reason, part of why Haikyuu is my favorite series is that it has the best ending of any series I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's quite, it seems like quite a common opinion as well.
Okay.
And I suppose it
Wow.
maybe is a little easier to do in a sports manga compared to other series. But that is kind of like the real test for Blue Lock. And I think that's also on that note, it's maybe part of why some series like Hunter x Hunter, Berserk, are still so popular and loved because not that like, I'm expecting them to have a bad ending, but like you see the point I'm making, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
how many
exactly.
series flop their ending? Like Jujutsu Kaisen was having a really good run, and in the last 5 chapters, just absolutely kind of plummeted the series for me.
Yeah, I haven't finished Jujutsu Kaisen, but I have heard a lot of
it's-
bad things about the ending.
Yeah, it was. I think there was a run of 10 chapters where it went from being like a series I kind of liked to like, wow, this is fantastic. And then the last 5 chapters just undid all of that.
Oh no.
But
It's probably that's further than I got, but again, I've been spoiled on quite a bit. Was the run of 10 chapters the big Gojo fight, or?
I loved that. But this was before it. There's a bit with, like, Yuji, which is really good. I have a video somewhere on my channel of like why this chapter's my favorite Jujutsu Kaisen chapter.
Oh, okay, might check that out.
But yeah, the Gojo Sukuna fight is obviously like fantastic. But yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously like do let us know anyone's theories, on where Blue Lock is going to go with these like last 2 tournaments. Because yeah, it's hard to picture right now, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Do you read? Actually, I don't know this. Do you read Hunter x Hunter?
I read some of it. I've not read this new arc Succession War. I've not read that. I've read like some of it. I read the like Hisoka against Crollo fight. But yeah, I've heard this latest arc is crazy complicated.
I've heard that as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
I caught up at the chairman election, so I got to finish that well weekly, and then at some point I realized, wait a minute, Hunter x Hunter is dreadful to keep up with because not only is it very dense, very complex, and also there are these massive hiatuses, and
Yes.
I'm just not going to remember
Yeah, that
what
was the
happened
issue
3
I had.
years ago.
Yeah, that was absolutely the issue I had. Yeah, someone just has a theory about why the pros have their chains broken on the cover like Loki. It just occurred to me that it would be really interesting if not all of them have these broken chains. Maybe it's just going to be Loki because he's kind of like, right now he's the player that Blue Lock doesn't seem to have an answer for. Sure, they kind of stopped him once, but if Loki's playing for 90 minutes, they're not stopping him. So I can't see the Japanese team holding off Loki for 90 minutes. Like, especially if he has Charles on his team and he just feeds those balls where like only Loki can reach.
Yeah.
I don't know how they actually stop him right now. By the way, side note, him catching up to Kaiser's shot, I think is the one moment in the series where I was like, what the fuck is this? That
Yeah.
to me, maybe people have different opinions, but to me, I was like, what? That's just complete, like, I don't buy,
Yeah.
I don't buy that. I don't believe that at all.
Fair. It's also like what struck me about this is the NEL, like this is going to be a future video, but
Yeah.
vision is very important throughout the arc. And at some point, like especially in the Uber's match, the fact that they play without having to look, that the Hiyori and Isagi make their goal without looking at each other, that's like presented as the pinnacle of their achievements. That's
Yeah.
like achieving the next level. And so then having Loki just, oh, he can look first and then still
Yeah.
catches up with it. That's just so unbelievably disrespectful.
That was crazy.
That is actually mad.
Yeah. Yeah, Charles is only 15, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Loki might be stopped. I've read every chapter Loki actually played, and noticed speed is more his ability to dash forward very quickly instead of having insane agility. I think I might be wrong. I seem to remember him in the World 5 match dribbling past like 3 or 4 players, like dashing in between them. Something to do with like his strides were so long and it was just so quick that he couldn't catch him.
Yeah, no one could catch up with him exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that for me is the one thing where I don't know how they will stop Loki. Like, how will they? Right now, I'm thinking they shut down Charles, and if he can't get these passes to him, but
yeah, and other than that, strength in numbers, I guess. You mark him with 3 guys.
Yeah. Someone did put a point about maybe that shot was a little slower because it was like on a curve, so obviously it was taking a longer route. But I still kind of think it was a bit BS that he was able to stop that personally. Gagamaru will stop Loki Man. I would love to see that. I mean, honestly, Gagamaru being as good in goal as he is also kind of BS, but I feel like I don't care because it's just so lovable.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's like, if you actually stop and think about it, like, yeah, this is nonsense. Like, how is he this good in goal? But it's just so fun to watch that, like, we just don't care.
Yeah, for sure. I love in every NEL match as well, he's just gotten his one moment. And that's just so important to the author.
Yeah, no, Gagamaru's arc has been great. I don't even know what it is. It's just suddenly become so lovable. For no explainable reason. And it seems to be a very kind of like widely regarded opinion as well. Like everyone seems to love Gagamaru. I've not seen a single complaint about it.
No.
It's just, yeah, I don't know what it is, but there's just something so lovable about it.
Yeah, exactly. I find it hard to put my finger on that exactly as well, but no, it's rare that you've just this one character who's so universally loved.
Yeah. And it's not even like it's the goalkeeper of all things as well, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's probably the most universally loved character in the series. Now that I think about it, I think everyone else I've seen someone say they don't like them. I've never seen someone say they don't like Gagamaru.
No. The only other character just off the top of my head might be Bachira. I don't know if there are Bachira haters.
I've seen a few. It's definitely a very small number though. Yeah. Obviously the most hated is probably Igaguri, but I don't know, it's probably Isagi's old teammate actually. I suspect. I think you just don't see as many people talk about it because he had that like one tiny scene. But, yeah. Do you actually think the author will lock off Igaguri? Sadly, yeah. Because it's just the perfect ending to his story, right? Like,
yeah, I agree with that as well.
What more can they do with him at this point? Don't get me wrong, I would absolutely love to see it, right? And someone mentioned that I should like live react to this chapter. I've heard we don't get all the rankings. I don't know exactly how many we get. But I'll certainly do that for this one, just in case there is that Igaguri fate in there.
Please, I will be watching that. Yeah.
If not, then it will have to be the following week. It would be really funny if we still don't get the full rankings the following week. That would just to really troll us. But yeah, we'll see. Igaguri,
we get all the rankings except Igaguri.
Well, I mean, that would be him out, I guess, right?
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Well, you can frame it the way there's like, oh wait, there's one more ranking coming in, and then we get the cliffhanger.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe they show the top 22 and leave the last spot.
Oh, that's true, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you watched my video on my predictions for the rankings. Who are you thinking will go?
Ooh, let me just pull up the lists.
I think there's just from the numbers. I think Fukaku is going to kind of be like that borderline, like 28 million around that. I think we will only have 3 significant eliminations, including Igaguri. For me, I put Kiora, which I got a lot of comments disagreeing with. And whole borderline shtick. I don't see what Kiora has done to earn 30 million this match.
That's actually one of the things that I found odd as well with the way his character was used. Because I really thought his scene was very cool. The only God knows who I passed to towards the end. And it then didn't go anywhere.
Only God knows what I will do does nothing. Because obviously he's written to either be 23rd or 24th, right? This whole borderline thing.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
You compare that to Hiyori, who got, 20 million for dribbling past like 3 or 4 Uber players. A few good passes, obviously that assist at the end.
Yeah.
What has Kiora done to get an offer 50% higher than that?
No, I think you're right. I
got a lot of comments. Okay. I've not looked at my comments since I posted in case someone's like, oh, you're wrong. Until I read the chapter. But I had a lot of comments disagreeing with me on that. But like that was my thought process behind it, right? Like he's surely not going to get 30 million. And I think that's kind of going to be the cutoff.
Yeah. It's so difficult because I can't see. I just got the page open with the most recent bids from before the PXG match. So I can't see Zantetsu being eliminated.
No, neither. Just because I think, the thing is, if Igaguri is one of the eliminations, right?
Yeah.
When you actually look at the top 23, they're all basically blue lock players besides like Fukaku, right? And Sendo.
And Aiku.
Yeah, and below the top 23, it's really just Nanasi. That's
and the U20.
Yeah. So then Igaguri and Kiora make up 2 more. So I think 3 significant eliminations. One of which, sadly, Igaguri. So it's only really a question of the other 2. Again, one of which I think is Kiora, which I know a lot of people disagreed on. I put Nanasi as the 3rd one. A lot of people said Tokimitsu, which I think is very valid because he's done like nothing. But yeah, I think 3 eliminations. Like I don't see how it could be any more than that in terms of like significant eliminations.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I do just have to say, what's his name again? Neru. That's the saddest one for me. The only person from Bastard Minion who never got to play.
Oh, the
speedster defender from the U20 team.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the U20 players have just been like
because I think all the other U20 defenders, and even like the midfielders all get a bid, but Nero's just on. His team is just too good.
Yeah. I think the only other player who, not a U20 player, but obviously that tallest high school player, didn't get to play.
Ishigami.
Yeah.
Right.
For Ubers. I mean, even Nishioka has a 3 million right now, so. But yeah, interesting to see who you think. Firstly, what do you think about Kiora?
It's so hard because I completely agree that he doesn't have the feats. If you wanted to keep him around, then you would give him just slightly more, because he hasn't achieved as much as Hiyori did in the Ubers match.
For sure.
You need more than 20 million to get on the list. So
easily, yeah.
I can't see it justified. It's just kind of sad that he got one of the coolest Blue Lock, and then just goes nowhere.
Yeah.
And then he's out. I guess I was on the borderline all along. And we wave him goodbye on the bus.
I don't see how he even gets to 24th. Honestly, if that's like 25 million, like.
No, exactly. So I think I'm in agreement with you for the most part. Nanase getting eliminated, I also think works quite well, just because if you do want to tap into that battle royale element, quote unquote, killing off the most likable person in Blue Lock, that does feel savage.
Yeah.
I would feel more for a dramatic scene with Nanase being sent home than for Kiora.
I think that...
Or even for, I'd feel more for Nanase than for Tokumitsu, for example.
I love Tokumitsu, personally.
Oh, no, I do as well.
Yeah. The only thing I was thinking with regards to... the other thing with regards to Nanase is we've seen throughout Blue Lock that, when players are just dependent on other players, they don't stick around. Right?
Right.
All of Team W, no, not Team W. What team was Bauer on? Team X, all gone. Naruhaya tried to depend on Bauer as well. So for me, Nanase kind of falls into that category as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense for him to go because of that. So yeah, I think that makes sense. I had many comments being no. You can go and look at the comments on that video where it says predicting NEL's final rankings. There's so many people being no, Kiora 120%. Kiora 100% is getting through. But I just don't agree personally. I'll link the video if anyone wants to have a skim through the comments. People are very, very certain that.
Interesting.
Yeah, top comment, Kiora is for sure going to be the last one to make it through. But I don't agree personally.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, were you weekly during the Ubers match?
I believe so. I think I started reading after the first batch of 12 episodes for Blue Lock Season 1 came out. Because I didn't realize
you were definitely weekly by Ubers.
I remember the Ubers match starting for sure, so yeah.
Do you remember, that was one of the most wild shifts in the fandom, how I remember it. So, for the first half of the Ubers match, everyone was kind of clamoring, okay, when's Hiyori going to play? When's he going to play? Because we all knew it was going to happen. And people were anxious about it. And then the moment that Noah has the scene of, okay, let's send Kiora in, and then they eventually don't. And everyone was so excited to see Kiora that I felt like there was almost spite against Hiyori for this fucker who didn't give us, Kiora Jin, the character we didn't know we wanted all this time.
And he's so cool in episode Nagi as well.
Yeah.
With all those random breakdancing moves and stuff. But But yeah, yeah, I personally don't see him getting through. Um, I'm not expecting anyone else. Like, I don't think obviously Rhea and Nagi have had their bids drop. I'm not expecting that to happen to anyone. Um,
Hmm. No, I don't think so either. At least there wasn't. No, there's no scenario that Kaiser gets his bid dropped either, right? That
ooh,
he goes
I've
back
been
to 300.
wondering about this because that would be the kind of like brutal nail in the coffin, right? Like
Yeah,
Kaiser losing his offer from Real.
right. It's just that he has had a very good showing in PXG.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like he's
So
still like a phenomenal player, right?
yeah,
Like,
he performed better than he ever has.
but obviously it's worth pointing out that Real is like the best club, right?
Yeah.
So will they take someone who's like? I mean, the thing is, I still don't feel it's a case of like. I still feel like Isagi and Kaiser are pretty like level, honestly. Like I've seen people
Yeah.
say like, oh, you know, Isagi's way better than Kaiser. Like I don't necessarily agree with that. I think they're still fairly close.
Hmm.
So I mean, yeah, it
No,
would
I
be a very
agree.
brutal. I mean, if he loses that offer,
Yeah.
then
It
he
would
will
be
be out for blood in the U20 match. I mean, I think, yeah, because I don't know. I mean, there's potential, right? Because I think I'm speaking in my Kaiser video about the whole like Ray Dark theory that I have.
which is? I'm not sure if I've heard this
I
before.
think basically, so the thing is, the only other time we've seen Ray Dark is he like oh, how do you pronounce his name? Buritsuta, you know, the chairman guy was saying like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, we consider our proposal, and it was like, yes, if it makes us money, right?
Hmm.
Also, in the I saw somewhere Kaiser said he started playing football at 15, which I assume is Ray Dark getting him out of jail, like he's 15 there.
Hmm.
Because he got that football at 12, so it wasn't that. So presumably when he went to BM and started playing there. So there's 4 years in between those two Ray Dark scenes, right? In the
Yes.
first one, he's listed as P for authorized agent. In the second one, he's the chairman of the whole organization, right? So this
Oh, right.
guy
You were
is
saying this the other day. Yeah, yeah.
ruthless, cutthroat, working his way to the top. So
Yes.
why did he get Kaiser out of jail? It's not kindness. There's no
No.
way that's kindness, right? So I think at some point, and I don't have a clue what, but I think at some point he's going to be like, Kaiser, if you don't do this, you are going back to jail. And I don't know
Right.
what it will
Yeah.
be, but I think Ray Dark has something planned for Kaiser. I speak a bit more about this in the Kaiser video I'm working on.
Mhm. What's the, out of curiosity, by the way, because you mentioned it a few times, what's the angle, or are you keeping that
It's
under wraps for
yeah.
now?
I'm still kind of finalizing some of the script, but it's kind of looking about like the like his kind of how he views his self worth and kind of like how it reflects it. You kind of see that struggle in some of the other characters as well, and how it reflects to
Hmm.
Kaiser. Yeah,
Okay, sick. Yeah.
yeah. Obviously, that's quite a lot. It's going to be a long video,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah. Um, Are you by any way related to Raven Geek? Because you guys literally sound the same. No. um, yeah, what
UK
was?
accents.
Yeah, I forget that like the British accent is a thing until I like go online and people are like, "Oh, your accent." Um, yeah. Anyway, what were we saying before? Something about Kaiser's offer, right?
Oh, the, yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is, they might just decide to decrease their offer because it was 300 from BM before and now 320 from Real, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's a lot of money. I know football player salaries are high,
Yeah.
But it's a lot of money if they're only taking the best of the best players. It doesn't seem
Right.
completely impossible. Um, I mean, we don't know. I don't know. So, do you not think that's likely to happen?
I just
I think that's almost too
yeah.
cruel. You can't,
It
like,
is
after you've gave us
yeah.
that this guy's backstory, you can't take that away from him.
Yeah.
Like, that's too much, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I do just like the idea that Kaiser is out for blood more even than after the
Yeah.
end of 294. That was one of my favorite moments in recent memory as well. Just again, every now and then you need a reminder that this is not quite the average sports manga.
No,
This
not at all. It's completely
yeah,
cutthroat, brutal.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. They've been working together so brilliantly at the very end. He's just like, yeah, okay, that was it. You helped me score. Now, fuck you, basically.
yeah. I suppose, yeah, because if Isagi's going to BM, it would be interesting if Kaiser had to go back there. But I don't know if he'll.
Right.
I don't know if he'll want to do even more of this dynamic. Like, I've had 150 chapters of it.
Yeah, probably
You
not.
probably want to move
Actually.
on to something else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that for me, like, he's probably not going to lose his offer from Real in that case.
I guess you're right.
Or maybe he'll get one from a different club.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, side note, I don't know if we're going to get any club matches either. Obviously, we're talking about already, like, how long this manga's
Yeah.
got to be. Like, club matches on top of that is going to be, like, crazy, right? Like a Champions League arc or anything like that.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's likely, to be honest.
No, maybe some sort of like post time skip bit at the very end. We get like 5-10 chapters just like seeing Itsuki playing for his club as well. I can't imagine too much more, right?
Oh, actually, just see message in the chat from Pensado. Just remind me. So the scenario might actually be, which is very funny, that Kaiser goes, so he goes to Real or anywhere else,
Yeah,
and then it's Isagi
Ness and
Ness
Isagi.
teammates.
That's a
That's
really
fucking
good
amazing.
point because I was really surprised by reading back. By the way, Ness's offer is only 50 million. The guy is actually like top-notch player. I'm surprised it's not a bit higher than that.
I guess he's still.
I guess
And I forget what the exact line is. He's not on like the regular adult Bastard München lineup, right? He's still subsidiary or
yeah, but yeah, it's
and it's
initially
stuff I
like
should actually know, but
yeah, I don't know what is gonna happen with Ness now.
yeah. I am very much expecting that before the NEL wraps up, we are going to get one more moment of introspection from Ness, kind of
Yeah,
like
for
we
sure.
got with
Yeah,
Leukemia. Just also because
it
we
would feel
actually,
weird
strangely
without
enough,
it.
yeah, and we didn't get any of his thoughts at all in the last chapter,
No,
which is very striking.
yeah, I thought that was really odd as well.
Yeah,
I'll come back to this. Someone's asked about like, do you think we'll see Sai's doomed to win the Champions League? Just a side note here. Sai's doomed to win the Champions League of Japan. I saw a bunch of comments about this actually. The clubs and the international teams are two completely separate things.
yeah,
Like Japan doesn't compete in the Champions League. Like I had a bunch of comments saying like, now Kaiser's gone to Real. He'll play with Sai in the World Cup for Spain. Like that's not how it works.
No.
I've
No,
seen
that's not
quite
how it
a lot
works.
of comments on that, so I just thought I'd quickly mention that. Clubs and like PXG is not the French team. It's a club in France.
Yeah.
I forgot what we were saying now. Yeah, Ness. I was quite surprised by that we didn't really see his reaction. He was just kind of went over to Kaiser and was like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry." And I think was like, honestly, probably the scariest thing for him was Kaiser not lashing out at him. Because right now he's probably like, what's going on in his head right now? Why is he not like saying anything to me?
Yeah, he did lash out during the match, right? And
yeah, he kind of yells Ness out at him.
Yeah,
and there's a great shot of Ness where like all the colour's gone from his face.
Yeah, it's something I've noticed. Like, we're getting a lot more of those kind of wavy lined despair faces. Like, no matter, it's funny, he does try out new things every now and then. Do you remember how there was this period where they all got these goblin noses for a while for some of the perspectives?
No.
If you see it once, you can't unsee it. I'll send you a picture after stream. I'm not going to look it up now. But he was, I think, experimenting with the art style to make the noses more pronounced, and it's quite odd, and he's, I think, reverted now again.
Yeah, I mean, the art has, if you read some of the earlier chapters, there's that one panel of Sai, which is absolutely hilarious to look back on. Let me see. Do you know the one I mean? It's really badly drawn. I say really like I could draw any better, but it's really like rough and different. I'm trying to find a link to it. If you read like chapter 1 or 2, it's in there somewhere.
It's chapter 4 probably, right?
Oh, is it?
Or that's
it's
the one
really
where
like
Sai's
distorted.
Yeah.
Just where is it? I'm trying to find a link to it so I can, like, the picture itself, so I can just post it. Yeah, it's crazy how some of the later like, it's so insanely good. Some of the earlier panels, not so much. Where is it? Side? I can't seem to find it. Yeah. Oh well. I mean, you probably know the one I mean. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, thanks so much, Rayer. Just haven't been responding to the chat that much, anyways. But I have seen a lot of just general positivity support for both of us. Really appreciate. Really.
Yeah. Cheers.
One other thing I was wanting to latch onto earlier about the whole Saiyan Champions League. I feel quite strongly that the whole point of Sai's character is, right, he gave up on his original dream of winning the World Cup, and winning the Champions League is this compromise of his. He believes that Japan can never produce a real striker, so the Champions League is the only way to win some kind of meaningful football tournament.
Yeah.
But
now that's kind of changed.
Yes. Like, that's his whole arc. Like, Sai is basically the person who potentially could have saved Japan, but he just couldn't believe in the dream. And now his whole arc, I think, is about wholeheartedly embracing a World Cup victory. So I think him shifting away from the Champions League is going to be very important to his character.
Yeah. It's an interesting note of whether he'll, because I mean, I think we were speaking about this before. I don't know if he will join in the U20 tournament though, just because of that 23 player limit. They would have to kick someone out to make space for him. Jim Pachi is like he would do that. He'd be like, yeah, tough. We have Sai. Like this guy. I mean, his salary is probably like $500 million or something.
Right. But still, it would feel
it would feel weird, wouldn't it? Like, it's okay, just kick. No, they need a backup goalkeeper. Fukaku will stay.
I think I told you this one, like, joking theory about how like Aomori's Messi leads it into right?
Yeah. Well, he'll make 23rd, and then Sai will come in and kick him out.
No, so basically I don't actually believe this, but I think it's a very funny thought. Aomori's Messi hits 23rd spot out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So gets added to the team, and then he gets injured again. They're like, fuck, what do we do? I guess we call in Sai.
Oh, I see. I mean, I feel like that's... yeah.
But that would be like the perfect send-off for that whole character storyline. Okay, why is this character constantly existing in the background?
Because
I mean,
it does happen. You do get players like I remember used to being quite into football when I was younger. There was some Arsenal player who was really hyped up, but would just get injured. Like he'd get injured for 2 years. People were like, "Oh, he's coming back. He's amazing." He'd get injured for another 3 years. And like it happens.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with Aomori's Messi. I feel the thing is, it kind of occurred to me. I was like, oh well, he was hyped up in chapter 1, but so was Otia, went out in first selection. So was the tallest high school guy, didn't even play for Ubers. Yeah. I think we might have, as a community, hyped him up a bit too much. I don't think it's going to happen. As much as I would love for it to.
It's my favorite ongoing.
Same. Yeah.
So,
but it's strange. Why did they make such a big deal of like why write that in? Oh, he's been injured for what reason?
Yeah, they're just pure blue balling for no reason.
Because he was like... And the fact that he's actually played a game now as well. And obviously, yeah, the only thing we know about him was chosen ahead of Baro in that second selection.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly.
I mean, we're going to find out soon, aren't we? Like, we haven't got much longer to wait. But, I mean, yeah, obviously at this point, like, I found out a couple small spoilers about this next chapter. I've not heard the name Nishioka being mentioned yet. Unless, like...
I guess if Nishioka would make the top 23, that would be the only thing people would be talking about.
Yeah, that is true.
That'd be the first thing we might have gotten spoiled on.
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing is, I suppose, like, I'm guessing we also haven't heard about Igaguri's fate for the same reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I would have definitely heard by now, if so.
Yeah, your comment section is going to be flooded.
Oh, I think
what's happening with him.
Next Friday, I think I'm not even like opening Discord, Twitter, YouTube, anything until I read the chapter.
Yeah, uninstall the YouTube Studio app, everything.
Yeah, maybe I'll even have to not check my emails or something in case someone sends it in. Yeah, I mean,
do people actually email you out of curiosity?
No, I've never had anything like that. I get a lot of scam sponsors.
Right, okay.
That's kind of the most exciting thing I get. Yeah.
Fair enough.
A lot of scam sponsors. I had one from a company who called themselves Legit VPN. That was the name of the product. Yeah, they didn't even attempt to. Someone just put, can you ban his name in the comments? You can, yeah. But I think, like, someone will get around it. Like, there'll be a comment on my Igaguri video being like, well, guess what just happened? So, but yeah, I think sadly, Igaguri's fate is a lot more predictable than Nishioka's. Only other thing, if Nishioka survives, who else is eliminated? Because that would then be we'd need another elimination, right? If he makes the top 23.
No, again, I don't actually believe that he is going to survive.
No. Someone...
if he were...
Yeah, someone just put... This is generally like the consensus I've seen around Nishioka, is that you quite often hear in sports like, oh, this guy's the next Messi, he's the next LeBron, and they never live up to it.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
supposed to kind of be a reference to that, I think, is generally what I've heard. Which is, I mean, it's something. But yeah. Has Messi got injured a lot? I don't know much about football, but I believe, from what I heard when I was younger, one of the big things about Messi was that he just never got injured somehow. So I don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Apparently, I don't know for sure. But I think he's quite renowned for not getting injured. Despite like, people kind of barging into him and stuff quite often. But yeah, this is an interesting question, by the way. I saw a couple of people comment this on one of my videos as well. Do you think there's a chance of Rin's value going down a bit?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but I understand where people are coming from with it.
No, I do think, despite, of course, there being a lot of issues with Rin's current playstyle, we are meant to understand that he's better than ever.
So good that it doesn't matter. Yeah, same thing with Barrow, where it's like, sure, like, this is kind of the way I see, like, Barrow's whole thing, is that, like, obviously this whole not passing thing is, like, a detriment to his team, right? But that mindset allows him to play so well that a trade-off is, like, worth it, as such. Because you just have him playing at his best, and when he's at his best, he's just, like, so good. And so it's a similar thing with Rin, right? Where, like, sure, he's kind of, like, doing all this, like, weird stuff, but it allows him to play so well the rest of the time that it doesn't matter. It's, like, offset by that.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Barrow does actually pass now.
He does, but I don't know.
Maybe not to let other people score, but...
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what... Because I've always wondered, like, it's how do they how is he going to continue to write Barrow? Because it almost felt like for a bit like he was just kind of quite reliant on having a bit of a gimmick to get by. Like, in the second selection, he was only able to score because he caught Rin off guard stealing the ball, right? Like in this one, he had Predator Eye, and Gagamaru kind of clocked that one. But he's still he's so big, strong, skilled. It'll be interesting to see if he just leans more into that kind of play style. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think this is a small side note. The NEL limited itself with the 3-goal limit, IMO. I think having it go to a certain number of goals made kind of like we all knew going into PXG, it was going to be 2-all, Rin, Shido, Isagi, Kaiser. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Like, maybe after the first couple games, where we kind of knew roughly where things were going. But I don't think it was a huge deal personally.
Now, what I find interesting, because I see a lot of discourse about the 3-goal rule, but it's rare actually for Blue Lock to not have matches decided by goal count, because it's also in the second selection and third selection. And for some reason, people don't bring it up there. And I don't quite know why that's the case. Because you can make the exact same argument. No,
that's very true.
Yeah.
I suppose I think it's maybe just these matches are so much longer. But yeah, no, that's a very good point. I don't think it's a huge deal. Yeah.
No, I don't either. In that sense, it's a more natural way. I think that's why Kaneshiko keeps doing it, to build momentum than by playing with time. Because if you want to have the tension build, which does happen in the U20 match, right?
If you want that big final goal.
Yeah, exactly. And we're kind of fighting against the clock. It does mean that you have to constantly zoom over to
the clock,
to the clock, which is pausing the action, right? And the U20 match does this really well, But I think if you're doing that every match, that gets quite tedious.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, with 3 goals or 5 goals, whatever, it's immediately reflected in just what's happening on the pitch. That, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously if the next arc is U20, it will go back to like timed matches again for that.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of, now that I think about it, it's like alternating between like timed, set goal, timed, set goal, timed, set goal, timed, yeah. Which I suppose keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, by the way, so you're right now on the Blue Lock streak.
Yes.
And I know you like just alternating things here or there.
Yeah.
What do you have a bit of a plan, or are you very much just going to see,
vaguely,
as long as you enjoy it?
Yeah, that's typically what I do. So like, I'll definitely make, like, I have a solid few months of like Blue Lock videos for sure. Then I think we got some sort of like a mini Haikyuu announcement.
Oh, what's that?
So, well, it was they put up like a trailer as such that was just like, it was really just a montage of like previous seasons and stuff. But also, more importantly, any Haikyuu fan has probably heard a lot about this. There was a big deal about them saying the next movie was the last movie, when there is still close to 100 odd chapters left. And so you can imagine trying to cram all that into one movie. Everyone was very like, yo, what is going on? Recently, they changed it on the website so that it no longer says final next to it.
Oh.
So there's potentially going to be more movies after this next one. But regardless, I'm hoping in the maybe like later this year, we'll get sort of a release date, and I'll maybe like transition back to Haikyuu again then. I'm also watching some like more series. I have a secret reaction channel, which I sent to you, but I've not posted about on my main channel yet.
I have seen it, yeah.
Yeah. Which I think, because currently I'm watching like Invincible Season 2, ReZero Season 1, and like Avatar Last Airbender. I will probably post about that on my main channel once I'm actually watching something that's like airing and current, as opposed to these like really old shows. But yeah, the point is, I'll probably make some like Avatar videos or whatever I'm watching there. I'll make some like odd videos on that.
How are you finding Avatar?
Last week I didn't do any of the reaction stuff, so I've only watched the first like 4 episodes. But really good so far. I don't know what it is, but something about the like world building just really draws me in.
World building is so good.
Yeah, no Avatar spoilers, by the way. I'm only like 4 episodes in. But so far, even though like nothing crazy has really happened, something just draws me in. Like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I can already see why it's hyped up as much as it is. So, yeah, definitely we'll be making some videos on that at some point.
Absolutely. No, I think you would be, like, Avatar is so up your alley. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, I already love Iroh, and all he's done is drink tea, so...
Iroh is basically the Gagamaru of Avatar.
The Gagamaru of Avatar?
In that everyone loves him.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, how is this guy going to become some, like, wild jungle guy?
No, sorry, he's just
everyone loves him.
One person that no one has a bad word to say about.
Yeah,
rightly so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'll be looking forward to that.
Agreed. Completely agreed.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about on Blue Lock now. I think I kind of hit a point before when I sort of like transitioned away from it where I felt like I'd said most of what I could say on it at that point in time. But obviously not like, I don't think I've made a little video on each of the masters. I feel like I've gotten a lot better at this since I've made those videos, so I might do another on them.
Oh, sick. Because those did quite well, right?
The
for
Snuffy
yourself?
one did phenomenal. The rest did like, like the Noah one, did like okay. I think it's like, but the Snuffy one, I saw in analytics has made a real comeback ever since Isagi had his whole "I'd sell my soul to achieve victory" thing.
Oh, interesting.
That video has absolutely surged in views since then. I wonder if there's a way I can show a screenshot of the views on it. You'll see it's a real like uptick.
Interesting.
And yeah, I put in the comments. Oh my god, yeah. So it's the first year it got 55,000 views, right? In the last 100 days, it's now been out for 475 days.
Yeah.
It's got another nearly 200,000 views. So it's almost got 5 extra view count out of kind of like nowhere.
Oh, dang. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's, I don't know how I can, so let me just, it's fine. I'll show the revenue and stuff. I don't particularly care. If I just put just check I'm not showing anything else on here. Yeah, okay. I've got my like address or anything on there. Let me just put a display capture on quickly. That's the wrong display. Yeah, as you can see, it's suddenly like really gained views here, right? Like, is that showing on the stream?
It's a bit delayed, but
okay, yeah. Hopefully it'll soon catch up. Yeah, I put a comment saying like, "Oh, why is this suddenly blowing up again?" And people saying like, "Oh,
okay,
yeah." People like, "Oh, well, it's Isagi's latest evolution," which I feel like I need to think about. I must admit, currently I'm not too sure where the link is. Besides Snuffy never being too much of a like ego, like into the whole ego thing, is more like level-headed. But yeah, this has now become. Well, I mean, yeah, compared to the other Blue Lock videos I made at the time, I think that was also part of why I kind of stopped making Blue Lock videos for a bit, because these were getting like, like some of them got like 10, 15,000. And then the Haikyuu videos did like unbelievably well. But yeah, it's suddenly just like, right in the last 48 hours, this is my most viewed video. And it's one I made almost a year and a half ago. So,
and also one that's not really relevant to any current manga or anime events either.
No, not
that's
at all.
So interesting.
I mean, what people said, I put at some point, I'll see if I can find it. I was like, why is this suddenly blowing up? Yeah, why is this suddenly blowing up, lol? And someone put, because it's Isagi's latest evolution, probably Isagi's new philosophy, blah, blah, blah. I still feel like I don't 100% see the link. I kind of get it, but not to the extent of like, why did people see that panel of Isagi and suddenly go, oh yeah, I'm going to watch a video on Snuffy? Right? Like, I don't really get that personally.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense to me at all. I'm not really sure what the link there was. But yeah. The Snuffy thumbnail looks like a self-improvement genre. This is the other thing, by the way. If you've watched some of my earlier Blue Lock videos, they were a bit much, I think, honestly, looking back. I actually, some of those early Blue Lock videos, I've never gone back and rewatched them, but I would probably find them a little like, yeah. Yeah. I think I've kind of chilled out a bit since I first started this channel. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone's like watched all of my Blue Lock videos who's in the chat right now. But it'd be interesting to see if anyone has seen that kind of like shift in my content over the years.
Interesting. I might need to rewatch some of your old videos now.
I think
so. No, I'm fairly certain I have seen some of the old ones, and I don't remember thinking, "Oh, this is over the top too much." But it's also been a while, so
yeah. I think I don't know. Obviously, like I think I've spoken about my reasons for starting the channel in one of my videos, just like trying to take my mind off a break off. I was very, very angry at the time. I think I spoke about that in one of my Vinland Saga videos, actually. That one I can definitely never rewatch. That would make me cringe way too much. But just for anyone interested, I'll see if I can find it. Where is it, actually? Actually can't remember which one it is now. Here we are. Yeah. Just for anyone interested, it's probably oh, hang on. Oh yeah. Not to be rude, but the combo of your channel name and title and thumbnail gave me the wrong impression of what this channel was. I'm curious, yeah, like I'm curious if people saw a lot of my thumbnails and things and thought like that must be like the edgiest, cringiest thing ever. I'd be interested to hear what people think. Like, you feel free to be brutally honest in the chat if you want to. Yeah, to me, your Blue Lock videos seem like, guys, this actually works. Yeah, I think that was a big thing for me as well. Like being very kind of like timid and being at like the opposite end of the spectrum to Blue Lock. I found incorporating that like did me a bit of good for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but by the way, just rare what it definitely seems like those self or Sigma improvement videos, honestly. That was also the first thing
I think I must have missed that.
I thought.
Fair enough, yeah.
But then I actually watched it and I was like, no, it's actually fine.
Yeah, I know there are yeah, there are like I don't want to like start drama or anything, but I know there are certain channels which kind of do like a similar approach to me. But they are far more like, yeah, Sigma grind set type thing. Yeah, and I should say, like, I like to think I've kind of matured a lot since some of those early videos. Like, I don't think they were particularly horrific, but I think I've probably calmed down a lot since then. Yeah. 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 And I think on this note, for Blue Lock, actually, it would be a very different series without Snuffy, I think. I think Snuffy, for me, is the character that really is like, okay, yeah, we've had all these like unanswered questions throughout, right? Like, you know, you're putting all your worth on just like what you achieve. Like, that's all that matters. Go 120%. That's all that matters, right? But not everyone is going to be able to. And even if you do, at some point it's going to end. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know for anyone else, but Snuffy to me is like what made, like, it was already a fantastic series. But I think since Snuffy's introduction, Blue Lock has probably been like my second favorite.
I definitely agree with that for me as well, where when those chapters dropped, my jaw fell to the floor where it's like, wait a minute, I didn't think that Blue Lock
would do this. Yeah.
Reach this level of emotional depth. And yeah, that's one of the coolest things for me as well. I mean, I dropped, of course, that video on, you know, Blue Lock and self-love and how this is not just with Snuffy. Like, Snuffy is the most overt example, but it's something that Blue Lock actually tackles in a quite meaningful, complex way, which I, again, from just reading the first few chapters, would have never expected.
You would never, yeah, absolutely. Just catching up on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, it's the most, like, still complex moment in the series for me, Barrow's Goal, because Snuffy is wrong. He is misguided. Like, he's this ghost of his former self, but yet his lessons are kind of true. And then Barrow, you know, ignores the you have to love yourself, but he achieves his biggest, you know, reaches the greatest heights ever, and you're like, what am I to make of this?
Yeah,
Like, is tragic? Is this like,
yeah, rereading that last part whilst making this Kaiser video,
yeah,
I feel like there's so many angles to that last goal.
yeah,
I don't think there's one correct, like solid 100% correct interpretation of it. I think you can see it from a lot of different ways.
yeah,
Yeah, it's still, I was kind of rereading it. I was like, I feel like I just can't get a definitive answer on exactly what's going on here. But yeah, I think also the other thing, which I think is quite cool with Blue Lock on a similar note, is I really like how, with these recent, like, restriction freedom things that I've got going on, it's very aware that, like, okay, yeah, this is not a one size fits all thing. You know, so like, oh yeah, this is going to work for every single person ever. You know, like,
yeah,
different people will benefit from different things, right? And I really like that as well. On like a similar vein to Snuffy, where it's like, it's not just trying to be like, you know, I spoke about this in my class from the Elite video. It's not just trying to like, it's not necessarily trying to push the ideas it puts forward. It kind of like explores them a lot more, especially like recently. Yeah, it's definitely a big part of why Blue Lock is so great.
yeah, for sure. That was just on the verge of saying something. Oh yeah, that was it. What I also just low-key found really cool in the PXG match, where we finally got more of an insight in how Noah operates, is that with the lens of ego types, Noah is such hard leaning into the self type, right?
Yeah, he was even like, oh, people have just pushed this title on me. And he,
yeah.
but
And the fact
sorry, go
that
on.
then, Isagi, of course, will eventually surpass him and will become the world's best. And the fact that, yeah, you can become the best with completely different views on life,
Yeah.
completely different values, I think that's super cool.
Yeah. One thing I do think, going back to earlier about how we were saying about like it'll be more of a spectrum than these like binary categories. I noticed when rereading it, there's a part where Noah talks to Chris Prince and he's like, oh, at the recent world's greatest striker voting or whatever, you know, I came first with 800 and something votes. You came first with 200 and something votes. And he knows the exact numbers. And he knows like, oh, it was the biggest disparity.
Actually, you're right.
So there's that small bit of like, yeah, he does actually care about this stuff as well. Like he's memorized all these numbers. Like he has the exact number of votes. I can see if I can find the chapter. What chapter does Chris Prince sub on Blue Lock? First result says 195. I don't know if that's correct or not. But yeah, whenever Chris Prince subs on, is when you see that he has all these numbers memorized.
I know exactly what moment you mean, yeah. That's actually funny, you're right. Because on the one hand, it makes sense if you're thinking of him as the data-driven, rational player, that, okay, of course, he would know stats, but you're right, that wouldn't be what motivates him at all.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, maybe it's not necessarily like what motivates him, but I think to say he has no interest in it and to like these binary categories aren't enough to like categorize everyone, right?
No.
Like a similar thing with Kaiser. Like I still, which is where I'm dragging that. It's affecting the stream. I was just trying to move it over a bit. Also, where I've got this emoji, but there we are. I also, yeah, as I said earlier, I still don't buy that Kaiser's just 100% a talented learner. You know, I think there's a bit of like 20-30%, whatever the number you want to put on it is, of like the genius as such. Yeah. one thing I just saw here is, do you think Isagi would have scored 3-0 each game if he joined Ubers? Because having a whole... Honestly, no. I feel like... I don't think Isagi is a player that you design a whole team around, like Barrow, or even Rin. Because he's not got that, like, individual ability. Like, he kind of feeds off having these other strong players around him. Yeah, and regardless, I don't think it would be 3-0. Yeah.
Also, just to put that in, like one of the points of the Ubers match is that Snuffy's initial philosophy to a certain extent was misguided, right? He's the whole, okay, I'm going to coddle you, you hold no responsibility. But the idea that you can only grow by facing and accepting despair, that has been in the story since the second selection. In fact, since the 3v3 with Barrow, which isn't a coincidence.
Yeah, I think I said that in my like 1 minute on every Blue Lock video. It's absolutely not a coincidence that Barrow had that, like, falling right down to rock bottom and then ended up with Snuffy at all. Yeah.
So I think actually Isagi is better off with Noah, who is driving characters to clash with each other and come out stronger than he would be with Snuffy.
Yeah. Also, someone has just pointed out that if Isagi wasn't on BM, he wouldn't have got Metavision. In which case, yeah, he's not even making like top 10, I don't think, without Metavision, realistically. Yeah, Isagi without Metavision probably even struggles to stay on the starting lineup. No, that's not. No, he probably stays on the starting lineup, but I don't think he even makes top 10 by the end of the NEL without Metavision.
Yeah, I think you're right. That'd be very rough.
Yeah. For sure, he would not make Japan's starting lineup as a striker.
Yeah, I think that is. I'm seeing two comments here that Snuffy would indeed teach me about Metavision. That is correct.
Yeah, I suspect so. But to go back to the note about Snuffy, originally, at some point, I never got round to sitting down and writing it. But I had the idea, like, rather than that 1 minute on every Blue Lock character, to do like just talking about each of the masters, saying like, oh, I think this one's the best mentor, and going down. And it kind of occurred to me that Snuffy is not number one, as much as I love him. Chris Prince is definitely number one, because he's actually focused on helping these players like grow as much as possible, right? Snuffy is just kind of giving them tactics that only work in this team. I mean, they'll be able to sort of use them in future, but there isn't actually a huge, like, there might not be that much carryover from what he's taught them to the future, right?
Okay.
Like he's just said,
that's a fair point, yeah.
Use these tactics, you'll win. But what about the future, right? Like, I think Chris Prince has kind of been the opposite. He's been like, sure, you will lose, but you will benefit a lot in future, right? Which is kind of weird, because unless these guys end up playing for Manshine in future, he's just given himself a tougher opponent in future as the World Cup. But I don't think he particularly minds, honestly. But
no.
Yeah, to me, honestly,
Chris Prince, it's funny because he is obviously his training is very useful. At the same time, is that true? Like in terms of philosophy, in terms of mindset, no, he does have some, but less than some of the other masters. So I've never I know a lot of fans see this hierarchy of, okay, Prince is a better master than Lavinio and blah, 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 and you can rank them.
Yeah.
I've always liked the idea more that each of them is one piece of a puzzle.
Yeah.
And that each of them has real value to add, has strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
Rather than, okay, Lavinio's just bad and Prince is just good.
I'm really looking forward to this Lavinio video, because to me, I was like, bro, no one has helped. You haven't helped anyone except Bachelor. So I'm really interested to see what you say on him. But I think Loki is actually pretty. The thing with Loki is he just said like, he was like, oh, Shido, shoot less and score more. Rin, shoot more. Karasu, duel more. Zantetsu, sprint more. Like, he's not actually helping them that much.
No.
Like, what is Karasu supposed to do with like, oh, I've been told to win more duels? What does he go away and do with that information? Like,
no, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because kind of the shtick of PXG, as I read it, it's the team of natural talent. It's where, like, one of my favorite details about it is, so we have one scene of a character being trained in this PXG mindset, and it's actually Rin training Nanase, right? And what Rin, he gives him a bit of a workout routine and everything, but actually what Rin does is he discovers a hidden talent that no one else could. And this is not that Nanase is working hard on it. It's something that he apparently had buried deep within all along. And that kind of fits in with like what Loki is, what Rin represents in PXG. So they are, in my mind, more like, again, I'll have an hour-long video coming out hopefully next week where I talk a lot about this. They work more on the level of a foil to what Bastard München stands for, rather than really having a defining, training routine way of improving.
Yeah, it kind of feels like Loki has left them to their own devices a bit, and it's just kind of not mattered because they're just already all so phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
his mentality is, you, those who aren't good enough, they just get culled off by natural selection, right? It's the law of the jungle.
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose when you've got Rin and Shido on the same team, you don't really need to do a huge amount for them to be able to win games, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just let them do their thing. Yeah.
Shido for FC Barca or PXG, which is better? I think both work well. I might actually say PXG.
Because I remember Shido was really excited when he saw Loki.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's because he played against him before, right? Speaking of which, we might see that at some point in episode Nagi.
We probably... actually, will we? But...
Because he's on Ryo's team, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That would be interesting.
Oh yeah, I totally would love to see Lavinio and Shido interact. That would be great.
There's a lot. I kind of wish. There's a few characters where it'd be really cool if they got to like just briefly speak to one of the other masters.
Yeah,
I was kind of hoping Chigiri would speak to Loki after the Manshine PXG game, but it doesn't look like that happened. Unless maybe we'll see something in episode Nagi if he goes through
Nagi. Actually, you're
all of those games, which would be...
Yeah.
I suspect he will.
I'd be shocked if there isn't a moment where Chigiri has to confront Loki. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just I'll quickly go for the...
I just saw that question.
Themes. I can't go in detail here because to make the entire argument, I actually need an hour, but there definitely is. I'll just give you a bit of a hint here. Basically, evolution is very important, and Ego's theory of evolution has 3 stages. You go from nature to society to football. So, like, you start with evolution being on the level of animals, right? And they develop, evolution as it happens in nature. And that is what PXG is very much aligned with. Like, Rin becomes a beast. Loki talks about survival of the fittest. They are playing purely on pleasure and instinct. That's kind of what Shido, Rin, and everything represents. And then the flip side, if we're talking about, okay, can you go from human to more? You can see what's Bastard München. It's the cyborg, the machine. And Isagi is the one who also becomes a machine for victory towards the end. So you get this idea that there's a progression to a higher state of being, a higher form of human evolution. That's kind of what I put as the major theme. And a lot will really click together if you look at it from this perspective. Sorry for going on a rant there.
No, it's all good. I personally, I'm still feel like I'm processing the PXG game a bit. Obviously, so much happened and it was so long. And I definitely had a phase in there where I felt a bit burnt out on Blue Lock and kind of like, I was still reading it, but not really like, you know when you get a bit burnt out in a series, you just kind of like read the chapter and it's like, okay. Yeah. Obviously, I've had a quick read through for the Kaiser video, but I think I need a real like slow processing it all at some point for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I spent 2 to 3 weeks just churning out a massive script, and when I really hyper focused on all these details, PXG is so intricately built up. There's all these small bits that really talk to each other in interesting ways. So, again, can't go into detail here without being really long, but it's not a coincidence that both Rin devolves into this beast, and then you have Kaiser's big moments being rejecting his humanity. It's a match that really gains a lot on rereads.
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, what was the point you were burnt out on PXG?
I'm not. I think probably very near the start of the game. I think kind of a few chapters in, I was a little. I'm not sure. For no particular reason. I guess just reading it weekly for like a couple years. Like it just kind of like it just happens when you're reading the series, and that.
Oh yeah.
Not that I wasn't enjoying it. Like it just it just happened. Yeah, I think probably like 5-10 chapters in, and then I think honestly, what kind of like really got me back into Blue Lock was honestly just the ending of season 2 where we finally got that like beautiful animation.
Oh, cool!
And just something about that just hooked me right back into it.
That was such a well done episode. I mean, I know this is like the most lukewarm take in the community, but
yeah,
they really pulled all the stops for that.
Yeah, and I believe it's now a different studio for next season.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they've been bought out by someone else.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah, the anime will hopefully have some real beautiful animation. I don't remember who. Studio change. So 8-bit, Blue Lock animation change. Yeah, they've been changed to someone else. Yeah.
Yokai says it isn't a new studio.
Oh, isn't it? Look,
like
studio. I'm sure there was something about it. It's the CGI studio that got bought. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Ah. I mean, the thing is from what I mean, I didn't end up. Throat's got a bit dry. I didn't end up looking too much into it. But it was more the timeline they were forced to try and do it under than like anything else.
yeah.
Is the main issue because obviously studios are just pushing these absurd deadlines onto people. You know, obviously a similar thing happened in Jujutsu Kaisen, didn't it? Where the Sukuna versus Maharaga fight was like insanely well done. But you could kind of see, I think, in the rest of the episode and the following episode, where a lot of the staff were on strike, which like justifiably so. Like I would really love. I mean, I don't know if it will ever happen, both within the manga and anime industries, for them to just be way more relaxed on the schedules. Honestly,
Yeah.
like the work these manga artists have to do to produce something every week is mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have the source right now, but I've also seen stats about the mortality rates of
Yeah.
mangaka, right? And it's not even like these necessarily the shocking, 30-year-old who dies or something, but it's just like they die 10 or 20 years younger than the average Japanese,
Yeah.
which is really insane.
Yeah, it's just
Like-
pure overwork.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one thing that going to Haikyuu is quite harrowing looking back is, you know, the author mentioned they had health issues at some point, like especially towards the end. And
Okay.
it starts off with like the odd mention of like, you know, the coach is like, oh, make sure you eat a proper meal, blah, blah, blah. There's like these little sprinklings of like, yeah, look after yourself. There's pretty much one of the major themes in this last like 10-15% is looking after yourself first and then doing all the other stuff afterwards. Which is really interesting looking back, knowing that the author struggled with their health towards the end.
Okay, right.
You might want to mute the stream for like 15-20 seconds. I'll put my hand back up when I'm done with the Haikyuu spoilers if anyone doesn't want to
I'll
hear.
go for it. I don't mind in any case.
So I'll put my hand back up for anyone who doesn't want to hear. Obviously the Kamamedai match, right? Hinata gets substituted off because he gets a fever and he didn't take care of himself properly. And again, I'm hoping everyone's got it muted. They lose that match as a result, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so that was him very upfront being like, yeah, this stuff has consequences, you know? Yeah, so put my like end of the Haikyuu spoilers. But yeah, that was quite interesting to see. Looking back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, fair enough that that's something that concerns a
Yeah,
manga
it's
artist, I guess.
quite wild, yeah. Because, I mean, the thing is, it's not a job that should have a health risk, right? It's you know.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It's also, I'm not sure if you have seen the author comments in some of the physical volumes. There are a number of ones where, like, I'm deeply worried about Nomura. Like, he talks about getting exhausted after relatively little exercise.
I saw him, there's one that I remember him saying where it's like, oh, I've become a complete shut-in and not left the house in, like, months or something like that. And I've always had this in the back of my mind where it's like,
Yeah.
especially with the quality of the drawings and stuff.
Yeah, he doesn't compromise.
No. I've always had this fear that it's going to come out at some point that he's having the most. Yeah, obviously, I hope it doesn't. To be clear, but
Yeah.
that has always kind of been in the back of my mind as something that like is somewhat inevitable that we're going to hear about.
Yeah. Yeah, there's two things that feel kind of inevitable. Real health issues for Nomura, and at some point Kaneshiro getting cancelled.
I mean, I don't. I mean, what is he going to put in for that? I mean, I know people made jokes about like, oh, if the cameras weren't rolling, then Isagi would have said a lot more in 284. But
there's just a number of small things scattered throughout his various works where I do feel like I'm so glad you avoided the 4chan pipeline, my guy. He's like prime material for that.
Really?
I get that sense.
Because I remember you mentioned one of his other works. I didn't end up checking it out. Like Super Ball Girls or something, which sounds a bit wild.
Super Ball Girls, it's just like
what else
it is hypersexualized. It's one of these things where there kind of is a thematic point to that, but also, let's be real, it is an excuse to draw barely clad women. There's a number of things in Jagan that also make me like, there's at some point. Do you mind if I give like mid spoil?
Yeah, it's fine. I don't know if I'll ever. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's at some point a character. There's this kind of loser guy who doesn't achieve anything in society,
right?
And he gets a power to take over other people's bodies, he gets the body of an attractive woman, and that's kind of his new chance at life. So he and he's kind of he's my favorite character, he or she, however you want to call her, because they're actually grappling with, okay, what does it mean for my identity? What do you like, using your sexuality to get what you want? But there also is some stuff that comes across it a bit like biological determinism. Oh, I'm a woman now, hence I am like going to be attracted to people who compliment my looks, that kind of stuff. And the way it's framed, like you could rationalize it differently, but is like there's almost like the fact that you're now in a woman body is changing the way you think and turning you a bit superficial. Where again, they're like, it's not straight up evil, malicious, but it does feel like, ooh, you might have some views about gender that I hope don't come to the surface.
I think he's not really. I wouldn't say he's really put anything like that in Blue Lock.
No, Blue
there
Lock
was
actually...
maybe a couple minorly bits with Henri in the beginning, but nothing like. That felt more like a representation of like a real struggle than anything like of like her not being taken seriously, more than anything else.
It's this thing. I see it quite a bit in, Shonen Seinen series. They sometimes do this, have your cake and eat it thing, where manga authors or anime will try to make this point about women being objectified. But then at the same time, if you look at the angles and the shots you're getting of these women, they do focus, especially in early Blue Lock. It's not that bad anymore. Like, okay, you're trying to, like, the very first pages of the manga.
It's pretty crazy.
You have a woman who is saying things that are really valuable, and these men can't see the value of her ideas and only the value of her looks, basically.
Yeah.
But then the manga also keeps zooming in on okay, but what you should actually care about is Anri has really large, everything.
Yeah.
Which I just find awkward.
I was going to say, I just
itself.
At the same time as that, I just saw the viewers, like, about 5 seconds before you said that, spike up by about 5. Which is fantastic timing. But yeah.
Anyway, with my feminist rants now.
I was going to say, does anyone, because it's coming up to like sort of 10 o'clock in the UK.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any last sort of questions or so? From the chat, or anything else you wanted to put in? I don't know if you've got anything else yourself. I feel like
Not that bad. But just quickly, also, what Yokai said about Super Ball Girls being used as criticisms for Kaneshiro. I just think that's a bit nonsensical, because if I'm not mistaken, he's always had 2 stories running at the same time, also in early Blue Lock.
Yeah, but people
like him juggling 2 or 3 stories isn't new. Yeah.
Yeah, like, especially like Twitter is a strange place.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So we kind of talked about expectations for Bachira. Actually, we haven't really talked about that.
No.
Yet.
I'm kind of just expecting him to get a goal, and that'll be it. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, it's been like, as someone points out, it's been nearly like 3 years since we've seen Bachira play. It's been a long time since we've seen Bachira. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously he's probably come on a lot. But I don't think we've really heard from him besides like, yeah, he's kind of like Chiguri, he's like consistently getting a goal despite being on a weak team. Yeah, I don't really know what to expect from Bachira. I imagine just gets a goal, finishes, I put it somewhere in my video, finishes high up, right? Like just outside the top 5.
I really hope. Oh, sorry. Am I
No, go on. Yeah, that was basically it. Just
Grand. Yeah. What I really hope is that we get the equivalent of, how we had those interactions between Nagi and Rin, Nagi and Baro, which are some of my favorite Blue Lock character moments, especially the Nagi Baro one, because every time I go back to them, I realize something more. There's extra layers, and the way the characters and their struggles, their arcs are really bouncing off each other. I really hope we get a Nagi Bachira being the equivalent of that. And I think there's a potential in that. Bachira, of course, is this character of creativity, fun, free-flowing. Nagi is in a slump.
Yeah.
I feel like there's also, of course, then you had way back in the second selection the moment where Nagi tells Bachira, well, we're not picking you, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And if that can come full circle, I would love that.
Yeah, I suppose that links in quite nicely to the other question. It's not something I dislike as such. It's more just something that I hope we get going forward. Obviously the NEL has been very focused on Isekai. I would really like to see a lot more of these side characters going forward. I made a video on this. I've been fine with like everything in the NEL, but I don't want the U20 tournament to just be like the Isekai show. I would love to see a lot more of these side characters. In terms of the only thing I thought maybe wasn't executed well writing wise, I spoke a bit about Kunigami earlier. I just kind of feel the thing is we don't know where that's going yet. But it feels like a slight letdown at the moment. To be honest, is the only thing I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, we did talk about that earlier. This is probably a niche thing to bring up here. Have you ever heard of the Brandon Sanderson fantasy writing lectures?
No.
They're actually very good. So Brandon Sanderson is one of the most prolific and successful modern day fantasy novel writers, and he has this series. He gives a yearly lecture on writing sci-fi fantasy. I just recommend those to everyone because they are really insightful in general about writing and how to think about it. And he talks a lot about promises authors make. When you are foregrounding certain things, you are making a promise. Kunigami is a very good example. And even if, we do feel betrayed in a certain sense here, that an author should at least meet the promise and preferably surpass them.
Yeah.
And that's just not, I can maybe make an argument that, Kunigami has been used in interesting ways, even in PXG for me, but it has been underwhelming. I was expecting more. I got some things I find interesting. I didn't find enough.
Yeah, personally, I don't. Maybe it'll change whenever you read it. But right now, I was really looking forward to making a Kunigami video. I don't think it's going to happen.
Fair, yeah.
And obviously, on that note of when the author makes a promise, I think Jujutsu Kaisen is the perfect example of this, where he set up a lot of things that people were really invested in. And then it was almost like he was just like, yeah, I'm not doing that now. I don't care. They just never got resolved whatsoever. The one series I've seen which pulls this off is JoJo somehow, where sometimes things will be introduced and it will just be forgotten about in the next episode, but somehow it just works. JoJo just makes you love things that wouldn't work in any other series. If anyone's seen part 4 of JoJo, there's the whole flashback that Josuke has of this guy that saves his life when he's younger. And it looks a lot like Josuke, and his injuries are a lot like Josuke's in the final fight. And it's just never mentioned. And it's Josuke's whole character was him aspiring to be this guy who saved his life when he was younger. And it was ooh, a mysterious figure that looks like Josuke. And it was just never even acknowledged again in the entire series.
JoJo's is so strange that way. For context, I've only watched the anime, so I've only watched up to part 6. I know part 7 is really beloved. One day I will read it.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's JoJo drops plot threads in really bizarre ways. Part 5, having this guy who leaves the team, and then it's never acknowledged again. That's just wild. You're waiting the entire part for I forget what your man's name was, but for him to come back.
Start with an F. Fugagiro?
Fugo or something.
Fugo, yeah. Yeah. But there's some wild stuff in JoJo. Obviously Hamon is just dropped after season 2.
Yeah, exactly.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love JoJo. I love it. I don't think I'll ever make a video on it, but it will always be one of my favorite series. A strong top 5 for sure.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just love it. Yeah. All right. Has anyone got anything else? Pillow Men theme goes hard. Yeah. What's your favorite part out of curiosity? Mine was probably part 2, actually.
4 for me.
4 was my second. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite dynamics in JoJo are the ones where where there's a constant back and forth with the heroes and the villain. You've got that in part 4 and also in part 6, especially the first half, where the villain sometimes is on the back foot and they find themselves backed into a corner and have to find a way out of it. That's... JoJo pulls that off so well. Moments where you're oh, Kira is actually screwed over.
Yeah.
And it's a miracle that he got out the way he did. But part 2 is phenomenal. Like,
It's just so funny.
wild how a story can just be carried by a super charismatic protagonist.
Yeah, it'd be hilarious to see like someone really try and like break down and identify why JoJo works despite like all the just sometimes nonsense it has going on. I think it's probably beyond human understanding, personally. but yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks so much for having me on. This was
Thanks
might
for
have
joining.
been
It's
the
been
longest stream I've ever done, and I had a blast with you.
yeah,
so
no, it's been really good, really good.
hopefully sometime soon again.
Yeah, I think yeah, maybe like once you've had the next match or two and there's a bit more to come to. Obviously no idea what we're gonna have moving forward. Like so yeah, I mean yeah, we'll see. We'll definitely do another one at some point.
Yes. Brilliant. Looking forward to that. And
Yeah.
yeah, we'll chat soon enough, I bet. Also, chat, thanks everyone for joining in. It was also just nice to see some familiar names from my channel. I mean, I don't know if people are both viewers of me and lessons from anime. I assume a lot of you are, but yeah, just
Yeah, no, I see that when I look at
really nice.
it's quite funny when I look at other Blue Lock channels. Sometimes in the comments, they're like, "Oh, I recognize that guy. He comments a lot on my videos." Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, there's a guy who has oh, I don't remember which one now. He has a boxer as his profile picture. I've seen him comment on your videos a lot. It's called like Adonis Creed or something. And every time I put a joke about Igaguri on someone's channels, he can reply to it being like, "Bro, I hate Igaguri." Yeah. You might see him now.
Oh, okay,
yeah. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me. And likewise to the chat, thank you for watching. Yeah, be sure to check out Suzels' PXG video next week, and I've got a Kaiser one myself at some point. Probably around Tuesday, Wednesday, as in like 10, 11 days from now. So yeah, I'll see you all for that. But have a good day or evening, depending on where everyone is. And we'll see you again soon.
Yeah. So long, everyone.
Thanks for joining.